And hitting the button right now. All right. I think we are live because the button has been hit. Welcome, everybody, to the Xbox 2 podcast. I am one of your hosts, Randall Thor19, the man with the million. And we got a, jam-packed episode of the Xbox 2 podcast today, and I couldn't do this without my buddy in crime, the one and only Jez Corden of Windows Central.
That's me.
That is you.
Hello. Hello, Rand. How are you today?
Hey, man. It's we're doing good. My dog just got done with a huge barking fit, so thankfully that didn't make it on air. I guess somebody was walking in front of the house, and Shakespeare can be a little territorial, and he's a big dog, so he's got a loud bark, and it reverberates throughout the entire house. So that's great. But other than that, I've been having a good week. Well, here's the thing. So it's tax season here in the U.S., right? Even though they extended it a month to May, normally your taxes are due April 15th every single year. So this week I had the pleasure, the absolute delight of doing my taxes and paying the United States government a lot of money. So that was fun.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Yeah.
I remember having to do that back when I was freelancing. It's a pain, man. I'm so glad that I'm employed by a company now and I just do all that stuff. Mm-hmm. It is annoying.
Yeah, Mr. Screen says,
what
all right, I
them?
think we're live. We are live. Yeah, so that was a lot of fun. Always, paying the government. It's always a great time. You look at your bank account and you just see that money go away and you're like, oh man, like it's just, and I almost got a haircut. So I haven't gotten my haircut since the entire time we're in a pandemic. It is long. Like, you guys can see the avatar if you're watching on the YouTube stream. I'm a nice clean cut. Sean Labrie made us look very respectable. I'm clean cut, got short hair, got a goatee. You got your glasses, you got your bottle of whiskey or whatever you're drinking in the picture, right? Unfortunately, that's not really an up-to-date one because I kind of look like Jeff Grubb now, where it's just the hair is just really long and the beard's long, mainly because I just haven't cut it since it's been the pandemic. So I almost went and got my hair cut. I feel like I need to because I'm kind of sick of this long hair. You know what I mean?
Have you been vaccinated yet?
No, I have not been. That's one of the other kind of reasons why I really haven't.
What I do is, man, I just tie it up. Screw it, just tie it up, man. Then it's as good as being short, and you don't have to pay a barber.
That's true.
Or
that's true.
Hairdresser, whatever you call them in America.
One Bad Mother says Randall hippie in chat. Yeah, definitely.
Randall hippie.
So shout out to everybody shout out to everybody in chat already. The show just started. We have an awesome community that always joins us every single Friday, and this is the third Friday in a row, which is great because we do aim to do it on Fridays. I know people expect it, but sometimes it just happens to be on Saturday. And this, I believe, if I'm counting correctly, is episode 169. So that's a milestone. Nice. That's a long, that's over four. Well, we've actually done over 4 years of podcasts, even though there are some weeks we do miss. 169 episodes, talking pretty much 90% about Xbox and what's going on in the video game, community. So it's great. But, shout out to Michael Gitkos and Dovagandhi and all the channel members that are here right now. Sleepy Goblin 2D. Of course, we got Lethal Papa, the mod, keeping everything kind of clean. We don't really like a lot of trolls on the show. Gunstar, Ashtray Gaming. We appreciate everyone who is here. So, Roker Corey already has something kind of for you, Jez. He has a cyclone emoji a whole bunch of different times and says, "Love you guys." Cyclone emoji.
Emoji.
You've kind of popularized the cyclone emoji, wouldn't you say, recently?
Yeah. Problem is, Rand, it's not cyclone.
What is it? So it's not. Is it a typhoon?
It's a typhoon.
Ooh. Does it have any... I guess we'll talk about it later, but did that have a significant meaning in any way, shape, or form?
Pretty significant, yeah.
Pretty
We can talk about
significant.
it a little
Okay.
bit
Okay.
later.
Sin Vendetta says, "Happy Friday, Rand and Jez. Hope you both are still smashing your fitness goals. And Rand, congratulations on hitting 80,000 subs. Let's get that 100K." So that's right. Yeah, I gotta give a big thank you to everybody who watches the videos or dislikes, because I know there are people who dislike the show, dislike my videos, comments. Everybody that hangs out here during the podcast. I've made it to 80,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is, to me, that's a big number. Like when I started this back in 2016, I never thought that I would be at 80,000 subscribers. That was a number I thought was like unattainable. And the fact that I'm sitting here and it's like 20,000 away from 100K, that realistically is possible, and I could have a little check mark next to my name and a silver play button from YouTube, like that kind of just blows my mind. And it's all really, thanks to you guys who watch all the videos and, who enjoy the content. And I know, not everybody enjoys the content, but a lot of people do. So just want to say a big thank you from the bottom of my heart to everybody who's watching this. You guys have, kind of changed my life. I'm not going to lie. Like doing YouTube, I just started as a side project, just that little hobby. And over the years, it's become more and more of like a focus for me, like trying to make, as daily videos as I can, because there's not always stuff to talk about every day, but, at least 2-3 videos a week plus the show. And the response has been incredible. So, I just want to thank each and every one of you guys for doing that. It means the absolute world to me. Ever since we started, Jez, like when we started the show back in, I think it was 2017, 4 years ago, we had maybe like 400, 300 people, which is fantastic. I never thought we'd reach that level. And here we are, and we normally have like last week we had 1,700 people. We regularly have over, 1,200 people watching live, me and you, just me and you. It's nobody else. It's just Rand and Jez. And there's 1,200 people watching live. And after the show on YouTube, there's 40 to 50,000 listens. And then whatever, people downloaded on Spotify and Google Play. It still blows my mind that many people want to hear what we have to say. So did you ever think when we started this that the show would be as popular as it kind of has been, I guess?
No, I had no idea. It was like I was like you. This would be a fun thing to do, fun hobby, fun side project. But it's awesome to see your channel blow up, man. You've done an awesome job.
Well, I mean,
and
you've helped with that, So, I mean, how many times have I source you in my videos? You know what I mean? So, thank you. Yeah. I love doing the podcast with you. Wouldn't there's nobody else I would rather do the show with. So, thank you for iFace Crook for becoming the newest member, as well as Scott McGee. Enjoy the emotes that you guys can use now, and appreciate all the support that everyone is showing me in the chat right now. Flame, he says, episode 169, nice. Let's see, we got one here from, let's see, Xbot. Xbot lost PlayStation 1. Nice name, buddy. No AAA exclusives till 2023. Lol, Halo delayed for sure. We'll see about that, man. We'll see about that. I'm pretty confident Halo will make this year. And we will be talking about the, what would you call it, Jez? The journalist that said all of Xbox's big exclusives are years away. Because there's some truth to that, but there's also not. You know what I mean? Like, so we'll talk about that. Eagles fan says, Rand, when you make your YouTube millions, you pay a lot of taxes, or you can just hide your money like most rich people. Yeah, well, I'm not rich, and I don't make YouTube millions, but you definitely have to pay the government, because I don't need them knocking down my door with an IRS bill being like, you owe us this amount of money, or you're going to go to jail. You know what I mean? So, yeah. Relish GT says, do y'all have a bone cream emoji yet? Not yet. I need more channel members until I can have an extra slot. So whenever we do, we'll definitely have Sean Labrie actually, make a bone cream thing. And then even, like people have said, hey, Rand and Jez, you should be on camera for the podcast. And I've thought about doing stuff on the podcast and with camera. Maybe when I hit 100,000 subscribers, I'll start appearing in my videos, and we could start doing the podcast a little bit sometimes with cameras. It's something I've given thoughts on, and right now the setup that I currently am in is not conducive for that, but it will be changing soon. So I've actually given some serious thought to, although I don't know why why people want to see, me, but because I would imagine most people would just see me and Jez on screen and be like, "Yep, I'm turning this right off." Not because Jez isn't good looking, but Rand is Rand's very ugly. Face. He says, "I think there's too many acquisition rumors going around. Square Enix put out a post denying the acquisition rumors." That is true. Although when we talk about it for sure, we'll mention that they didn't really negate anything that was said in the original post, though. So we'll talk about that. Jonas says, "Said it on RDX, I'll say it here. Xbox needs to hire ex-PlayStation CEO to run indie division for Xbox." Tom Long says, "Typhoon was bought by Google and then shut down, right? Are they coming back in some form?" I don't believe that's what Jez is referring to there. Typhoon, they made... what was the game they recently put out, Jez? It was a co-op. Typhoon, the studio Typhoon that Google ended up buying.
Yeah, it's not them. It's Typhoon refers to an IP.
Yes,
a new IP. We'll talk about it a bit more later.
What was the name of that game? It came out like last January, not this past January, but January 2019. It was in Game Pass, and I'm blanking on the name of the game. I played it, and I did co-op with Colt Eastwood, and I don't remember the name of the game. Anyways, Punkadish says, "Congrats to you both on all of your podcasting success." Thank you, Punk. Adam says, "First time catching this live. Love the podcast, though it gets me through long days carrying mail." Ooh, we have a post office, sir. Post mailman guy. I just completely
postal worker.
I just completely screwed that up. I am sorry, Adam. I don't know.
You tried.
I don't know. I suck at this whole live thing doing podcast. My bad. Thank you for the support.
Professional podcasting.
Episode 169. Oh yeah. James Hall says, "Typhoon. Oh my God. Pray to, please. Love you guys." A lot of people really do want Prey after people experienced the FPS boost once it was in Game Pass.
Prey is so good.
Prey is damn good. Really, really good. We got Gaming Forte, my brother. He says, "Words cannot express how happy I am for you. Keep being an amazing person and friend. You to Jez, winky face." Hey Forte, so the game that I'm playing on screen clearly is NBA 2K21. And that's taken directly from the Xbox game DVR. I didn't make any adjustments to it whatsoever. I recorded an SDR. How do you think it looks, Forte? Let me know. Let me know in the chat. I think it looks maybe a little bit, maybe not as bright as it should be, but it's definitely not as dark as a lot of people that post game DVR footage on Twitter. You ever noticed that, Jazz? When people they take clips of the Xbox game DVR stuff that they on the console, and then they tweet it out, and the footage looks like dull. You know what I'm talking about?
There's some kind of issue when it comes to encoding HDR footage. Like it's something I've encountered all the time. You can go into the game DVR and just turn off HDR, and that fixes a lot of the issues. But I have that issue all the time with Adobe Premiere. If I've got footage that is HDR enabled, and I try and run it through Adobe Premiere, half the time Adobe Premiere doesn't like it, and I can't be bothered to figure out how to make it work. So I just turn it off, man. HDR is a nightmare for video.
I love how you say HDR. I say HDR. You're like HDR. You like the way you say it though. The way you say the yeah. And the game I was referring to at Typhon, Gunstar said it right. Journey to the Savage Planet. That is definitely the name of the game.
Definitely not talking about Journey to the Savage Planet.
Yeah. Well, that's Journey to the Savage Planet. We're not talking about that. Joe90 Superstar says, "Jim Ryan got owned as part of the MLB deal, and as a result now spends his days in Phil Spencer's self. That's why Sony's so quiet." Phenomenal X7 says, "Rand, I'm not a YouTube millionaire. The Ferrari in your driveway disagrees. I wish there was a Ferrari in my driveway, but there is not. Chaos Might says, hit that like button, love your videos. Thank you. And yeah, if you guys are enjoying the show, before we get into these topics, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, and yeah, we'll get right into it. So before we get into these topics, like we got talking about the Xbox Series X big games years away, the whole Square Enix, Xbox, PlayStation acquisition tease thing. Jez has some more information since you posted an article on Windows Central about global publishing, Xbox and Nintendo working together, Metal Gear Solid IP potentially up for sale. There's a lot here we need to talk about. So yeah. Jez, what have you been playing this week, buddy, before we get into all these great things?
Dude, I barely played any games this week, unfortunately. I've been so damn busy. So busy, constantly working, writing. I played a little bit of Outriders, tried it after the patch, still getting disconnected from people in co-op, and it comes up with, you've lost connection to the host, blah, blah, blah. We are recreating your game, and that happened twice when I was trying to play earlier with a friend. Well, with my brother. And I was just like, man, dedicated servers exist, man. They're a thing that exists in 2021. Why aren't you AAA publishers using them, you know? But whatever. It's whatever, you know, ongoing connectivity issues with that game and stuff, and bugs and anomalies, and yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much all I played, and I only played a little bit of it. I'm hoping to get some proper gaming in this weekend. I want to try the new Stellaris DLC. There's a new DLC for Stellaris, which adds a whole like branch of stuff, and maybe play some more Evil Genius 2. I really love that game. But yeah, that's pretty much me, man. Barely touched anything. I need to finish Naruto Boy as well and stuff like that.
Yeah. Hey, Jez, somebody's saying that in the chat, maybe you can set the record straight. I know we'll talk about this a little bit later, but he says that we have zero information on any of these things. I'm so tired of quote-unquote insiders talking BS and in vague terms about anything in the gaming world. Would you like to correct him by saying, because I know a lot of people, there are like a lot of people that claim to be insiders and have information about all that stuff, right? But the stuff that we've speculated on this podcast before, right? About certain things. And I could list all the things me and you have known that we've teased on the show that eventually gets proven true. Just one off the top of my head, you know, how long were we saying that Halo multiplayer was going to be free to play before it actually happened? Because we knew it was happening. But specifically about this, you've always said that you never publish something on Windows Central without actually having hard verifiable information. So when you talk about global publishing and you talk about the typhoon emoji, that's because you actually have legit hard proof, correct?
Yes, I got documentation.
Documentation, yeah.
The thing is, right, I don't really care to defend my track record anymore. People who, you know, haters gonna hate on that. If you actually care, you can go back and look at all the things I've leaked that turn out to be accurate. Like, nobody believed that Microsoft was doing 2 consoles this gen for months. Everyone said Jez made it up. Jez made the Xbox Series S up, Lockhart and all that. I leaked the specs of the Xbox Series X and the S a year before they came out. All accurate, all completely accurate. You know, leaked the price, accurate. Leaked the launch date, accurate. You know, I even leaked stuff like Alexa coming to Xbox, for God's sake. So, you know, my track record speaks for itself. Anyone who matters, who cares to do the research, they can find out. Alexa, quiet. My echo speaker thought I was talking to her. But you know, anyone who cares and they can do the research and look into the track record of me, Rand, or Jeff Grubb, or any of the Xbox insiders. You can look into the track record if you actually care. If you don't actually care, then you're just a troll, and I don't give a shit what you say anyway. I'm not interested.
That's right.
So
yeah, I know. Saji Caesar says you predicted Horizon Zero Dawn to PC. That wasn't a prediction. I literally knew it was happening. Like I said multiple times, I know this is happening. Like I don't know. And sometimes like I can't come out and say 100% exactly what I know. So I tease certain things and then they like, look, you guys have been listening to the podcast long enough and the shows, when we do these sort of things and end up being right. Like I understand new people always find the channel and find the podcast and they are obviously not as in tune with what, we do here and how right we have been. So like I understand that, but I don't know. I just have to laugh at that. Like the idea of people doubting Jez. Like, yeah, no, you guys are just making stuff up. Okay, sure. Yeah, okay. Anyways, moving on because I don't want to dwell on that longer, but I just wanted people to understand that when you write something on Windows Central, it's because you literally have hard documentation of things happening. And that's the whole...
If maybe like people should focus on themselves instead of what other people are doing,
Right.
Worry about your track record.
That's true.
all these genuinely fake insiders that have no track record for accurate information whatsoever. Just worry about your content, okay?
Most of them don't even have content, so it's a different thing. Sorry for getting a little sidetracked there. I just saw that and we I had to mention it again. But Face says people who thought Miles Morales was a flop were wrong. Miles Morales sold more than Last of Us Part 2 and Ghost of Tsushima combined. I did see that, and I liked Miles Morales a lot. There's aspects of it that I thought was better than Spider-Man. I actually thought like the shorter nature of it worked better. And yeah, I mean, Spider-Man is just more appealing and hits more demographics and more age groups and crosses gender lines more so than Last of Us or Ghost of Tsushima. It is just more of a mainstream product. So it's not surprising to me whatsoever that it did better than Last of Us and Ghost of Tsushima. It was the premier launch title for the PS5. It also came out on the PlayStation 4, and it's selling like hotcakes. And basically, this proves to everybody that, Sony made the right decision by making it cross-gen because it didn't stop sales from the PS5 version, and it didn't stop people from buying the PS5. Because anybody who couldn't get one just bought it on the PlayStation 4. The games, it's like sometimes the hardcore, the ones who the mega fanboys who talk about exclusives in this manner, like, oh, it needs to be on the PS5 only to sell the console and stuff like that, they aren't really thinking very clearly. Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo know exactly what they're doing. Like, these new consoles were going to sell it regardless, so Miles Morales wasn't needed as an exclusive to the PS5 to sell the system. The system was going to sell regardless. Same thing with the Xbox. But, congratulations to the Insomniac. Can't wait to see, what Spider-Man 2 is all about, and can't wait to play Ratchet and Clank. Chandler Weatherford says, do you guys think that Game Pass will allow some developers to bring games to Xbox that didn't come last gen? Maybe some of Square's niche games or Ni no Kuni. What do you think, Jez? I mean, it's certainly possible that Game Pass could allow that, but I mean, if you mean like 360 games being ported, like back compat, I would say probably no. It would probably have to be an updated port, but I could be completely wrong on that. What do you think, Jez?
Yeah, tough to say. Some of this stuff is like, I don't know. It's about priorities at the end of the day, and it's about priorities and whether the developers want to do it and whether the publishers want to do it, because ultimately they only have so many hands that they can dedicate to any single product or project or whatever. So it's like, do I get my devs to work on this, or should I get my devs to work on that, or whatever? It is what it is. There is a shortage of game devs. There is literally a shortage. So you guys should, like, everyone here who's watching this, go and learn how to be a game dev, and
make a game like Jez. Jez is making a game about me, and it's going to be great.
Yeah, you get to play as a tomato, Rand, bouncing around, destroying blocks.
I mean, that sounds like a fun time. I'm in.
AAA block breaker game, man.
Hell yeah.
That's very rare. But that's the thing, man. It's It's about priorities at the end of the day. Would it be like better to put those devs on, Ni no Kuni or whatever, or would it be better than to put them on a more modern title that people know more about and stuff like that? But that said, there's obviously a wealth of legacy content out there that could be tapped into. Like Square Enix is porting, some of their classic franchises like Legend of Mana?
Yeah, Legend of Mana, the one that Miles Dampier is always
Yeah,
talking about on Twitter, you know?
Miles from Windows Central Gaming is obsessed with that franchise, and
Mhm.
I'm like, I've never even heard of it. So there's a lot of legacy content that could be tapped into to port to future consoles, but I don't know.
Yeah.
It's about how many people they've got and how much time they've got. I
Yeah, I
guess.
mean, I don't think they would be like, back compat stuff that never came. Like, it'd be tough. It would have to be a new port, and I don't know. I don't really see it personally. Adam says, "Hey guys, what's the end game of Xbox back compat? How many more games from the OG 360 era? And is there any more magic they can add or do to these old games?" Well, so we got the frame rate boost, and we have seen in the past Microsoft add the was it the Hoochie method? Hey, the 4K where they take the resolution and they up it to 4. Right? That's what it's called, the Hachi method, I believe, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, Jez. Yeah, I totally forget but everybody, I think people know what we're talking about. It's when they take like the resolution of the 360 games, they bump them up to 4K, so they look really good. And Jason Ronald did answer a fan question recently about back compat, and he said they're still working on it. So there is a possibility that they can continue to go back into the 360 back catalog. What?
Dude, I want Max Payne 1, Max Payne 2, and Max Payne 3 on back compat so bad.
That would be amazing.
It's so annoying that never happened.
That would be absolutely incredible. I would be down for that 100%. Please. Like Max Payne 3 is so freaking great. It's so awesome. So awesome. Like so yeah, there's still probably things they can do. I don't know if they'll add more OG Xbox games. There's probably more 360 games they can add, licensing issues aside. And maybe there's some more magic they can do. I know like FPS boost is pretty damn awesome, and upgrading stuff to 4K, but we'll just have to wait and see.
What about ray tracing boost?
Ray tracing boost, yeah, I wonder. DPC Grizz says, "Hi Rand, this is your post office mail guy. Can you move your Ferrari? It's blocking the mailbox." Sorry, 1 second. I'm gonna leave Jez here alone for 10 minutes while I go move my Ferrari. You want to take some questions from Jez while I go move my my red Ferrari and park it in my garage instead?
Wow.
Our buddy Sin Vendetta says, "Jez, when are we going to get that Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow remake? It's time."
Oh man, well, they kind of remade Yellow. That's what Pokemon Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu are. They're a Pokemon Yellow remake. So I don't think they're gonna do another one, even though like they changed the combat system or the capture system or whatever. So man, Nintendo frustrates the hell out of me. The way, see, one company that is terrible at handling their legacy IP, frankly, is Nintendo. Like, how are you gonna you put out a collection of backwards compatible games, and then arbitrarily remove them from the store? That whole the Mario 3D collection thing, and then when was the new Metroid announced? Like 4 years ago. I've heard nothing about it. And there's games I love like Star Fox and F-Zero and all this stuff that Nintendo just leaves dead while it makes a million new Pokemon spin-offs and stuff. Man, I do like me some Pokemon, Rand, but what about some Metroid? What about some Star Fox?
I want to see some more Metroid. I love me Metroid. But I will reiterate, I'm not ever playing a Pokemon game again. I don't care if it's Pokemon Snap. I don't care if it's Pokemon Balls and Pokemon Butt. I'm not playing no Pokemon game. I'm done.
Pokemon Balls
or like I don't know, what do they call the next one? Pokemon Balls and Pokemon Taint or something? I'm not playing those.
Oh my god.
Brett says, "Rand and Jez, what game franchise or franchises would you like to see revived?" I have a few. Area 51, NBA Ballers, and the Midnight Club. Now, this is a great one. So, chat, What game franchises would you like to see brought back to life? And jumping off of what we were just talking about, I would love to see a new Max Payne. I would love to see a new Dead Space. I love Dead Space. Dead Space 1 and 2 were so amazing. I would love to see a new Jade Empire or a new Knights of the Old Republic. I'm sure plenty of people in chat would be like, Banjo-Kazooie, 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 right? So, Jez, what franchise would you love to see back? We already have people saying Blur, people saying Quake, obviously a Banjo, Dead Space, someone saying NFL Street. James Shield says, I would buy Pokemon Taint. Okay. Sampo saying Mirror's Edge, Twisted Metal. A lot of people with a lot, Legacy of Kain, that's a good one. Metal Gear Rising 2. A lot of great suggestions in chat. What would you want to bring back, Jez?
Man, like some of the more recent ones, I think about like I know they're working on it, but where the hell's BioShock?
BioShock, yes.
I'd love to see Microsoft somehow get the full rights to the Warrior Mecha Soul IP. Right now they only own the console and PC publishing rights. And this is why you haven't seen much more from Mecha Soul, is because Microsoft isn't sure if the legalese in their agreement covers cloud-based games and stuff like that. Is what I've heard anyway. Could be completely wrong about that, but it's just what I've heard. So I'd love to see Microsoft just, fully acquire all that stuff and, get some more mech stuff on the go. But again, that's super complicated and unlikely. But, Lost Odyssey, something I'd love to see come back. I was a big fan of Capcom's Breath of Fire RPGs. I don't know if you ever played those, but you could transform into a dragon. It was cool, man. At least you could in Breath of Fire 4, I think. There's loads of games I'd love to see return. Man, Breath of Fire was so sick back in the day. There's also like, did you ever play Shadow Hearts? There's like loads.
I love Shadow Hearts. I loved.
You played Shadow Hearts?
I played Shadow Hearts 1 and 2. It was back during my youth. The days of the PS2 playing those RPGs. I love Shadow Hearts. Great.
That's a long time ago, man. Long time ago.
Yeah, it sure is. I still remember them though. Yeah, we got some good ones. I mean, Saints Row, which I do think there's a new one coming. Crimson Skies. One Bad Mother says Project Gotham Racing. A new Fear game.
Dino Crisis. Bloody Roar. Someone mentioned Bloody Roar. Did you ever play that?
Yes, I did play. I did play Bloody Roar. What else we got? Prototype. Zero Myths says Blue Dragon and Lost Odyssey. I know a lot of people would love to see a sequel to Lost Odyssey. M. Strong says Quantum Break, Rise, and Dead Space. A lot of people would love a sequel to Rise and a sequel to Quantum Break, unfortunately. Probably won't get there. But, man, there's a ton of great suggestions here. Minutia, Def Jam Fight for New York. Oh, man, imagine if we got all these games. Scrub T0, says Splinter Cell. Oh, man.
What about that pony game you used to play?
Oh, jeez. My Horse and Me Too, or Barbie Puppy Adventures? I don't know, whatever.
Barbie Horse Adventures. What about that?
Yeah.
Or a sequel to that?
Yeah.
1,000 gamer score, man.
1,000 gamer score, you know me. Let's see what else we got here. Geo says, hey, there are rumors about a tornado on Battlefield 6. Are you referring to that? So you're referring to that,
No.
Jez? Nope, not Battlefield 6. Blast the Base says, Jez just triggered my Amazon Echo. Sorry about that. Achievement says, Jez, are you going to try the second Extinction in a couple weeks? Might be a sleeper hit. So that game...
Is that in a couple of weeks?
Yeah, that actually launches on the 28th, an Xbox game preview on within Xbox Game Pass. And that's that like Left 4 Dead dinosaur shooting game.
What the hell? I feel like that was announced 5 minutes ago.
Well, I mean...
What the hell? What is happening with time? I feel like that was just recently announced, but it was announced like a year ago.
It was announced literally like a year ago during the May showcase. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. I love me some Left 4 Dead, and I love me some dinosaurs, and I love me some shotguns. So
yeah, I'm definitely.
Turok was a sick franchise back in the day.
Jesse Norris says, you guys see what Brad Rossetti was teasing on Twitter, saying hire and putting up gifts titled frequencies? Says it'll be in the Insider program on Monday. Are actual clocks getting boosted? What do you think, Jez? Any? I did see Brad's teases. You have any insight to any of that?
I I have no insight to that whatsoever. But if anyone from ours is listening to this, hit me up with an embargo, please.
Yeah. Well, I
I
mean,
have no idea what that is.
we'll find out because I'm in the alpha ring, so I'll get it if it's alpha and alpha skip ahead. So it'll be interesting to see if anything happens there. Shane says, "Hey, you guys, just wanted to say how accurate you really are when you two speak. I listen, and to all you trolls out there, oh well, thank you." Scrub T0 says, "I apologize to Rand and Jez. I came off wrong. I think I spent too much time on Reddit gaming leaks and rumors on the constant leaks of the most vague things." It's okay. I mean, I understand that, and if you spend a lot of time on gaming leaks and rumors, there are a lot of stuff that goes wrong. But
I definitely wasn't calling him out specifically. It was just like, we get that a lot, right?
Mhm.
Where it's people are like, "Oh, Jez is never right," even though like they haven't checked what my track record is. It's because they don't care. They just want to troll. So it wasn't against him, or it was just sort of like a general sort of, my track record speaks for itself. A lot of the guys in the Xbox community, they have really good track records, which is why when Jeff Grubb says something, I sit up and listen, because the guy's got a really good track record. And I know from speaking to Jeff in DMs that he has like rock solid information. So, we definitely don't have the same sources, but when our information aligns, that's when it's like, oh, then, we kind of both heard the same thing by coincidence.
Yeah.
Yep.
Brett says, "I see what you did there, Rand." Nightwolf says, "You brought it up, so I'm going to say it, lol. Revive Splinter Cell. I know, Rand, we've all pretty much given up, but my faith will never die. I need a new Splinter Cell, man. Just revive the franchise, please." East Texas Alex says, "I want a new Lost Planet." And Dragon Force 993 says, "Mafia series would have been mine." I think, isn't there a new Mafia game coming? I mean, I know they put out the remake of the first game.
Mafia was really good. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think there might be a new one. Maybe Hangar 13's making another one. Bravo says, "Do you think it's possible that old PlayStation titles come to Game Pass similar to PC? If MLB ends up making more money on Game Pass than on PlayStation, or not possible?" I don't think that's very likely. I think MLB is just a product of circumstance, essentially. Like MLB was acting as the proxy publisher, and they could kind of make the deal because there's nothing preventing them. But like, I don't think we'll see other PlayStation games come to Game Pass. Maybe you could see Death Stranding come to Game Pass on PC side, but I don't think you'll ever see like those games come to the console stuff.
Yeah, didn't 505 publish the game on PC?
They did. Yeah. So I mean, we'll see on that. I mean, I don't think it'll ever come to the console, but I wouldn't necessarily rule out Death Stranding coming to the Windows 10 gaming store or something like that, right?
Yeah, I think I agree. A lot of people are mentioning Condemned in chat. Did you ever play Condemned?
I love Condemned. Condemned 1 was great. Condemned 2, Condemned 2 not so much. And I was really looking
moments.
Yeah,
with the bear,
the prosthetic limbs. That was great. Condemned was great. It was a really good launch title, and it didn't have 1,000 gamer score. It was one of the few games that actually just had less than 1,000. They were supposed to add them later, but they never did. I think it had like 720. Spartan Ghost says, "Please make a new prototype game." Alex Mercer, new prototype. I don't think Activision is interested in that. Chaos Might says a Draken reboot would be awesome. I'm trying to think. Do I know of that game? I'm not sure.
I don't think I know that game.
Yeah, and Nico says, "Does Jez have any rumors about Hood?"
Hood.
Yeah.
Is that Focus Home interactive game?
I think so. That's supposed to be coming out next month. I'm assuming that's what he's talking about. I mean, the game's going to be out.
I honestly have barely checked out that game. It's man, I wish I just had more time. I really do. There's so much stuff like rolling around in my head, and then like it's like, oh man, I totally forgot about that game. Like I literally like Outriders too. Like I forgot about it literally till the day it was launched. And it's proved itself to be a big launch. And we need to hire more people, but they need to give me more budget.
Yeah, you need more money to hire more people. Paul says, "What's more likely to release, a Conker's Bad Fur Day sequel or a Splinter Cell game?" I would say a Splinter Cell game is definitely more likely to happen than Conker's Bad Fur Day.
Yeah, I tend to agree on that.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll continue to talk about essentially what I've been playing. which, as you guys can tell, I've been playing a lot of NBA 2K with Dealer and the crew, playing with Forte, playing with Pong Soul. I really enjoy playing NBA 2K, especially one of those nights where you don't really feel like playing anything else. It's just like, you know what, I'm just going to team up and we're just going to dominate. Well, these 2 games we dominated that I recorded, but the day before we got beat by the All-Star team. So I'm playing as my favorite basketball player ever, Michael Jordan. Sue me, I'm from Chicago. Like, who else would I pick? But it's a lot of fun, and it looks incredible on the Series X. Even though, and you know what? It doesn't crash my system. I know a lot of people have issues with it crashing Series X's, but it doesn't crash mine. And I finished Outriders, Jez.
Yeah, I'm a fair bit away from finishing it, I think, because my brother's only just started it, so like playing through his game, so I've basically gone back to the beginning. So I still haven't finished it, but I'm like level 27 or something now. What do you think of it? What is your final verdict?
I'd say I'd probably give it a 7. I definitely enjoyed it more in the beginning than towards the end, and it's a long game. Like if you're just doing the story and stuff like that, it's actually a decent amount of content, around 25 to 30 hours. I think I've put about 40 hours so far into Outriders, and I've done a couple of the end game expeditions. So like the end game is basically you do these short missions, and they're timed. Like if you want to get the better chances at the better loot, you have to set like do it within a certain amount of time, like within 8 minutes to get gold, etc., etc. And they just constantly throw enemies at you. It's just like so many enemies, and the whole thing is like you're supposed to speed run this stuff, and that's kind of the end game. But I could get 1,000 in the game. I don't know if I will, because I'm at that point now where it's just like I don't really care to chase after the loot. I was having a great time playing with Colt and screwing around with like the different abilities, and I got this legendary gun that's pretty damn awesome, but I just don't know what's in it to keep on playing it, because it's like, okay, so you beat the game and you play it, and then okay, so it's time to do expositions to get more stuff, to buy more legendary gear, to do the harder expeditions to get more gear, and it's just like this like cycle, which I don't know, I don't really care for. But I mean, I enjoyed what I played. I give it a 7. It probably would be higher if it didn't have so many issues, like so many problems. I never had a game crash more to the dashboard in my entire life. Like I personally crashed probably more than 10 or 12 times, and people in my party had crashed multiple times, and that's like awful. And then there was that inventory bug that was going around that I know hit members of the community. My buddy Lord Cognito of Iron Lords, he had his entire inventory wiped. He logged in, his dude was in his boxers, and not everything was gone. All of his guns, all of his armor, just completely wiped. And a lot of people have been experiencing that, and now, he's pissed off, as you would be, because, like, can you imagine playing a game like Destiny and everything's literally gone? Like, I don't know, man. Personally, I would uninstall that game. I'd be like, listen, this is it. So yeah, done with Outriders. Moving on. Next game I'm looking forward to is Returnal. On the 30th, I will definitely be buying that game. Hopefully, I like it. It does look pretty cool. Some of the recent trailers they've been putting out. Really, I mean, I love the sci-fi setting. I love the time loop. The only issue I have is like, well, I don't really care for roguelites very much, and I know this is one, so we'll see. And $70, right? Like, oh my God, $70. Like, it is definitely a steep price to pay if you're not sure if you're going to like something. But other than that, like we got May's coming up with Hood, we got Resident Evil 6, we got Mass Effect Legendary Edition. So there's a lot of games coming up, and Ratchet in June and stuff like that. So yeah, so Outriders, check it out if you got Game Pass. I give it a 7. I just wish it was in a better state. Like the servers and the crashes are just unacceptable to me. So.
Someone, because I wrote an article about it, and I said it's the no game I've played this gen, well, or including last gen, has crashed as much as this on me. Mm-hmm. Like literally no game has crashed this much for me, or disconnected this much for me, or just had so many issues that stopped me playing. While simultaneously, no game has crashed this much that I still continue to struggle through just because I was enjoying it. And people in the comments were like, "Oh well, you gave Cyberpunk a pass," and it's like, dude, Cyberpunk didn't crash on me once, you know. Like for the problems or the perceived flaws the game has, the game just never crashed on me. I played it on PC. I don't know what state the Xbox and PS4 versions were in, but the PC version was fine for me. But Outriders is a true mess in the in the true sense of the word. But there's something so addictive about it. I love throwing down an ice, field and then blowing everything up with a rocket launcher and stuff. It's super addictive, but it is a rough game. But oh well. It is what it is.
It is what it is. Let's see. We got Nick Turbo wants to know when we will get more games for FPS Boost. He says he loves us. Thank you. All the support's been amazing. Everybody in chat already. You guys changed, my life. 80,000 subs. I don't know how to properly express this, but I'm sometimes literally at a loss of words. Seeing everybody in here, wanting to hear what me and Jez have to say about stuff, and I don't know. It's truly. I don't know, man. I'm getting a little emotional, Jez. I don't know what to say. You know what I'm saying?
Bless you, your little cotton socks, as we say in England. 80.4 thousand subscribers. It's climbing up already.
Yeah.
You'll be at 100K by the end of the year.
Hopefully,
and then you'll be a YouTube.
As long as Xbox actually keeps on the gas on the pedal, dropping new announcements, having a great show at E3. You know what I mean? As long as people are happy about Xbox, I'm sure we'll hit 100,000. But sometimes Xbox makes mistakes and they trip over their own feet, smack their face on the ground, like when they were like, "Hey guys, we haven't raised the price of Xbox Live. How about we double it?" How about we double it? And we're not going to give you any new features, by the way. It's $120 now. Okay, Microsoft, what are you actually thinking about here? When we get more games, I think soon. I think we'll get more announcements. It's been a little bit over a month since the Bethesda stuff and those titles. So I think they probably would like to keep a monthly cadence, and we still got a couple weeks left to go in April. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get another announcement regarding FPS Boost later this month, maybe early May. Chinook Guy says, hey, what is the likelihood of Xbox Studios stuck on first party making something else, i.e. 343, The Coalition, and Mojang? Well, I mean, I would say Mojang is probably always going to do. Mojang is probably always going to do something with Minecraft. The Coalition, I'm not so sure. They're always going to be working on Gears. I could see them doing a new IP or potentially maybe even a spin-off in the Gears universe. 343 will probably always be doing something Halo-ish. What do you think, Jez? Is a lot of these studios stuck making just those franchises, or is there going to be more variety coming from the studios?
I think there is potential that, for example, the Coalition, if Gears of War 6 comes out and it wraps up the current story arc in a relatively nice way and leaves a gap for Gears to sort of go on a mini vacation or whatever, I'm sure if the Coalition came back to Redmond with a solid pitch for a game, Microsoft would be like, yeah, let's do that next. I don't see why Microsoft wouldn't do that. I'm sure when it comes to 343, maybe they're a little bit more locked into the Halo or whatever. But I'm sure there will come a day too where even maybe Halo needs to take a hiatus or something, and maybe 343 does something different. I think it's probably good for studio culture to let them flex their creativity, be outside of the usual wheelhouse, maybe if they want to. It's ultimately a thing if that's what they want, because I think a lot of people who work at 343, they probably want to work on Halo. It was in the job description. They opted to join 343 and wanted to work there. So artists gonna art if they collectively want to make something new, and it's a good time for Halo. I can't see Microsoft turning down a good pitch, but it's just one of them. You sort of just have to wait and see. There is an interesting documentary coming out soon, by the way, Rand.
Yes.
I don't know if you saw this, but Double Fine is putting out I think it's 90-minute long documentary about game development and their creative process. It's about like a 2 week. It's about a 2 week game jam they did, or something along those lines. That Double Fine's putting out soon. It looks like really high quality documentary. They worked with some partners and stuff, and it's all about like a 2 week game jam, and it should be a good insight into how studios sort of look at their creative process and move from a pitch into development and then ultimately a product. So if you're interested in that sort of stuff, definitely like go. I think it's on Double Fine's YouTube channel. So if look up Double Fine's YouTube channel after the show, not during the show, and go and check it out. I think it's set to like a premiere thing, so you can drop a notification on it, and so yeah,
Excellent.
That's
I would love to see Coalition do something different, and even 343. But I'm down for whatever they're gonna make. I mean, there's gonna be a lot of games this gen. Delon107 says, when do you think we will see Xbox Series X Pro? I think there's a good chance we will never see one. Which we'll talk a little bit about later on during the Xbox Series X exclusives a little bit far away. But I think there's a chance we won't. Buddha time says, Rand, just wanted to say I had a great time chatting with you the other night. Would love to do it again soon. Yeah, it was a good time hanging out with everybody and you, Buddha, in chat. There was we had like 10 people. Like Dealer, Colt, Forte, Cognito, yourself, Fonzarelli. I mean, there's a whole bunch of people in the chat. That was in the party chat. That was a lot of fun. Scott says, will Dolby Vision come to Series X 4K Blu-ray? Jez, you know anything about that?
No, I don't know anything about Blu-ray.
I don't know anything about that either.
I'm kind of embarrassed. I have never actually used the Blu-ray drive on Xbox Series X. So I don't know. I know there's like some limitations with some stuff to do with the Blu-ray, and even like the Dolby Vision implementation, and HDR like doesn't work at 1440p, which I think is a limitation of HDMI or something. I don't know. But yeah,
I actually have never used the disk drive in my 1S, my 1X, or now my Series X. No reason to. I'm all digital, and I don't have any Blu-rays, so I've actually never used the disk drives, which is why I wanted that PS5 digital so badly, because I know I'm not buying any physical games. The last physical game I bought was Titanfall 1 back in March of 2014. I believe is when it came out.
Yeah.
That was the last physical game I bought, and ever since then, I've been 100% digital. And I was someone who was against being digital. Like if you listen to Gamerscore podcast or the previous podcast, we were talking about stuff in 2012 when Microsoft was like always online and DRM. I was throwing a fit. I was pissed, and then I eventually just went all digital anyways. Weird. Brett says, hey, WB has delayed 99% of their games, and the fact that they were looking to sell last year, you think it's still possible they could sell? No longer for sale doesn't mean we are not selling. COVID is a cover. Well, I mean, gaming companies are valued pretty highly now because of the pandemic. There are definitely people that are going to sell. Warner Brothers, is it Warner Brothers that has a whole bunch of debt they want to offload? I believe. I mean, there's
not sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think $4 billion was a little bit too excessive for what they were asking for, because it doesn't come with the IPs. Maybe a more realistic $2 billion. Personally, I would love it if Microsoft bought them, because I love Rocksteady games. I love the Batman games. Like, I think Monolith is a great developer. But the problem is you don't get the IPs, and that's, I think, really the sticking point for a lot of the publishers who were interested.
Yeah.
Will they sell again?
They can literally just poach the devs.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they just poach the devs? That's a dumb deal.
Warner Brothers might be looking at, like, they might see, all right, we'll see how Suicide Squad and Gotham Knights and Harry Potter do, right? And then if they don't necessarily do well, then they might be like, all right, it's time to get out of here. Thanaros says, yeah, AT&T. AT&T owns them, and AT&T has a ton of debt. So maybe they want to see how their games perform first before they're like, all right, we need to get out of here. Chinnock Guy says, new game idea, 3D, family-friendly, roguelike platformer by Arcane. I'm not I'm not a fan of roguelites, so I want Arcane I don't know if that's what Arcane wants to do. That's kind of what they want to do. And I know Deathloop is sort of a roguelite, but yeah. Chaos Might says, Jez, is Microsoft buying Square Enix? We will definitely be talking about that. And Jez, and Jez, you already know what Jez thinks. I mean, he said it on Twitter. He says no. So we'll go more in depth. Sin Vendetta says, Jez sounding like more like a game dev every week. Hey man, he's building that game.
Dude, seriously, I was watching a video of an internal Microsoft session recently, and they were talking about APIs and how the APIs hook in with the C# code, and I was like, oh my god, I actually understand what they're talking about now. Because remember, I used to get those like dev sessions from like back in the day from GDC and stuff, and there'd be like these huge sessions about programming, and I'd just be like, I have no idea what they're talking about, but I'm starting to get it now, starting to understand it, which is it's really cool, feeling your brain grow, sort of thing. If I can learn it, anyone can learn it. Like everyone listens to this show, just go and learn game development. It's really not as hard to get into as you might think. I'm going to put an article together about how to become a beginner hobbyist game dev.
You should. How to make your own tomato game by Jez Corden at Windows Central. First step to becoming, a millionaire game developer, right?
Right.
Let me see what else we got. Dan Harris says, "Sorry I'm late to the party rank. Congrats on 80K round 1 to 1 million. Here we go. Thank you." And we got over 1,400 people watching. We got 370 likes. Let's see if we can get that up to like 500 to 600 before the show. So hit that like button. We got a whole bunch of great topics we're going to be talking about really soon, like right now, because we talked about Outriders, talked about NBA. Jez didn't play any games this week because he's really too busy making his video game. You need to put that on Xbox. Get it on Game Pass. Make sure you have really easy achievements so the achievement community buys your game in thousands, right?
I haven't learned how to create conditions for achievements yet.
Ooh, that'll be the next thing.
Yeah. Maybe I'll just like add like 1,000 game score really easily and sell the game for like $1 and then just make a whole load of money like all those publishers you love so much.
Yeah. Tom says, "Hey Jez, how's the game dev going? I haven't seen you post much about it lately on Twitter." Which is great for me because he usually tags me in it because it's something to do with me. So I appreciate that.
I haven't been I didn't work on it much this week because I've just been so busy, but I am going to work on it this weekend. So there will be new tomato tweets. I'm starting my shmup this weekend, Rand. Going to make a shmup where you fly a white blood cell inside a body and shoot viruses and stuff like that. That should be interesting.
That should be. Chiefman says, maybe the community here can help you with your game. We can make a Randall Tomato platformer.
Interesting. How would a tomato work as would you roll around and maybe like use your stalk as a grappling hook? That could work, man. See, a lot of these games just write themselves. I'm gonna make a Randall Thor platformer with a vine whip grappling hook now. That'd be sick. And you have to battle angry fanboys.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Anyways,
yep.
Anyways, yeah. Let's talk about these topics, and I want to go right to I want to do a small one first because this was the announcement I didn't expect, and it actually surprised me quite a bit, to be honest with you, because I didn't think this game was going to get a sequel. So Nintendo had a one of those indie directs, and this is going to be brief, it's Nintendo, but I just wanted to say that I'm so excited. Jez, do you know why I'm so excited? Do you know what game that was announced that really made me incredibly happy that they're making a sequel?
Blink's Time Sweeper?
No, not Blink's.
Oh. What then?
Oxenfree 2.
Oh yeah, I did see that. I never finished Oxenfree 1. But I know that you liked it and that it was popular. What do we know much about the game, or was it just announced?
Basically, I never thought it would get a sequel. I adore the first game, Oxenfree. It was on Game Pass. It's on Xbox. Love it. I recommend it. It's one of my favorite indie games of this entire generation. And I thought we would never get a sequel. I thought Night School would do something else. So when I saw that Oxenfree 2 was announced for the Nintendo Switch, it's actually coming out this year, I got really excited because now, just like Little Nightmares 2, another indie game that or Little Nightmares rather, I was like, oh my god, like I love Little Nightmares. We'll probably never get a sequel, but then we did, and it came out and was just as good, if not better, than the first. The same thing here with Oxenfree, like the setting of like on a kind of this like remote place with like these ghosts trying to communicate with you, just the way the art style is, and especially the conversations, the narration, the voiceovers, like all that stuff. It is such an incredible game, and I'm so happy that Oxenfree 2 is coming, is actually going to be a thing. They didn't announce if it's coming to other platforms, so I'm not sure if it's a Switch exclusive, but I don't care if it is, because I'll be playing it. I need to play Oxenfree. I love that game. So, yeah, Oxenfree 2. Can't wait to play it. But I figured, you know what? Let's talk about some of the little teases, Jez. Since we talked a little bit about earlier, you know, your article and stuff like that.
Sure.
The typhoon emoji, the cyclone emoji, that you talked about in your article. And we've had some people ask some questions in the show. Like, can you explain a little bit more about what is going on with global publishing? You mentioned in your article that you know of at least 4 global publishing titles from, you know, bigger developers, big AAA games, not small one like Battletoads. That doesn't even include the Kojima one. So can you expand on a little bit at all?
Sure, yeah. So it's not a cyclone, it's a typhoon. I won't elaborate more on what that means at the moment, because I do believe the devs deserve to announce their game. It's a new IP. It's not just Cause. It's not Battlefield. It's nothing to do with Ubisoft. It's a new IP that Microsoft is working on with an independent, prominent, large developer. So, I'm not gonna give any details beyond that, other than to say that the game is a multiplayer game. It's in a connected world,
Mm-hmm.
from what I understand, and it sounds really interesting and compelling. So I'm pretty excited about that one. I also know about 3 other games that Microsoft are working on with other partners. One of them is a new IP. Of the other 3, actually no, 2 of them is a new IP. I think one of them is a spin-off of an existing franchise.
Ooh, a spin-off. That's interesting.
Yeah. I'm not gonna say any more about that either, because again, I think the devs should get to announce it. And also, these games are potentially really far out, because one of the games I was expecting maybe announced this year, specifically the typhoon emoji game, might be announced this year. But the other 3 are a little bit further out. However, one of those games kind of ties into what Clobril teased today. So, you know, I think like when I heard about this was back in February, and Clobril heard about it more recently, I think, based on his tweet, which says to me that the project's going ahead. So I heard about it at a really early time, and from Clobril's tweet, I've kind of sort of deduced, if it is what I think he's talking about, that the project's going ahead now. So, and that specific project was really ambitious. What I read about, and it's not Scalebound.
People always want to bring back up Scalebound. Like, oh man, you know, Scale. It's like I think they just want that game to just because it has too many bad ties to Xbox One. Like it's just it's dead. Bury it. People forget about it. Move on. We're gonna get way better stuff this generation. It's completely forget about Scalebound. Yeah.
It's not Scalebound. It's another new IP, completely new IP. It's not related to anything else that you would know about. But you know, and no, it's not Bungie.
Yeah, it's also not Bungie. So
yeah, man. If I keep saying what it's not, eventually someone might work out what it is. So it's not Bungie. It's not Scalebound. But that's all I say. And this project's like far away. So they might announce it. They might tease it maybe someday, because I think and we're gonna talk about this later about Xbox Series X exclusives being delayed and stuff. I think there's a potential that they could tease some of this stuff or announce it, because if they are locked in and they are being developed and stuff like that, maybe they could announce it with a cinematic teaser like they did for Fable and stuff like that. But I have no idea at the moment. So the stuff that the stuff that I've heard about has just made me super excited for what the future looks like for Xbox right now.
yeah, because you were really down. You were there. Well, I wouldn't say you were really down, but there was definitely a time, and even more recently when you wrote an article about Xbox Game Studios about, you can't just rely on Bethesda.
Step up and stuff.
Right, no, because Bethesda, they're going to put out quality games like they have been. Xbox Game Studios still got to do it, but then it's like you still have this ace in the hole, I guess you would call it, like these global publishing deals that aren't from studios that Xbox owns, and it's like you said, of like at least 4, and not any of them were the Kojima game either. So there's potentially 5, plus more that you may not even know about. It's like, so not only you have all these studios making titles and all the Bethesda games, but then there's also these other things that nobody had any clue about. So
yeah, I had no idea about any of these games until the last few weeks or months or whatever, and that sort of made me really hyped up for what that looks like. And Faisal 007 just said, so all these games Jez talked about are not Kojima games. None of these games that I know about have anything to do with Hideo Kojima. At least they don't right now. Maybe who knows? Maybe you could something weird could happen and he could end up working on one of the games with one of the other studios. I don't know. But for right now, none of these games I knew had anything to do with Hideo Kojima or Kojima Productions, which is when Jeff Grubb learned about the Kojima stuff. That was completely separate.
I believe that's Jeff Grubb in the chat right now. Jeff Grubb's game mess with the typhoon emoji. Something tells me Jeff knows exactly. Jeff knows everything. So I bet you he probably knows exactly what the typhoon thing is. So shout out to Jeff Grubb, always giving us excellent scoops to talk about on the podcast, and I could make videos about. And Jeff, I don't know, if I feel a little adventurous, I might put a picture of myself out there comparing myself to you, because, buddy, my hair is just about as long as yours. I should put up a picture and be like, who did it better, Randall Thor, the lowly YouTuber, or Jeff Grubb, the excellent writer from Venture Beat? But thanks for being here.
Pulitzer Prize-winning game journalism.
Yeah, right. At least, what did he say? Doesn't like to be called an insider or whatever. So, right? Is that what he said? At least they didn't call you an insider, Jez, right?
Yeah. Oh man, it's all fun and games. But yeah, it's funny because none of these games are Jeff's Kojima game, and none of them are from Bethesda, and none of them are the Xbox first party studios games we know about. Which, when you add them all together, there's dozens of games, that are exclusive. Console exclusive to Xbox. Again, a lot of these games could be further out for sure, but there's going to be a point where Microsoft starts dropping a major game every few months from this huge mass of content they're building up. We still don't really know what Double Fine's going to do after Psychonauts 2. We don't know what In Exile's working on. We don't know what Compulsion's working on. We got State of Decay 3, Fable. We've got a project from Elder Scrolls Online Studios that they're working on. We don't know what Arcane's doing after Deathloop. There's just so much. There is so much. So while it might seem like a dry period right now, it's gonna ramp up like a snowball, and it's gonna snowball into this ridiculous volume of content that is going to hit so many different genres, so many different verticals, console, PC, mobile, and it's going to be like, honestly, a golden age for Xbox content.
I mean, like it's like we've said in the show, and I've said in my videos. I firmly believe this will be the best Xbox generation. Better. I currently think the 360 is the best, and even when you look at like first-party titles from the 360 gen, it wasn't that many. That was just like when Halo was at its peak, when Gears was new and fresh, and when Microsoft had third-party games that were good debut on the system first, because the PlayStation 3 was really hard to develop for with the cell, right? So you had the BioShocks only on Xbox, the Mass Effects only on Xbox for a bit before the second one, Saints Row 1 only on Xbox, Oblivion, right? So there was that time period with the 360 where it was so dominant and so great, but a lot of it was just simply because a lot of the third-party developers couldn't get their content up and running on the PlayStation, and the PlayStation was selling very poorly at the beginning at $600. But there's going to be way more stuff now. Like, it's kind of ridiculous when you think about it. And they need it because Game Pass is the platform, and they need to keep people subscribed. And I do think COVID has screwed up a lot of plans. I do think there was a lot of this was supposed to start this fall. Like, because I've always been of the mind that Forza Horizon 5, Starfield, and Halo Infinite were going to be launching this fall, right? That was going to be the big 1, 2, 3 punch. Microsoft then also, the rumors about the Ubisoft Play thing coming to Game Pass, like sort of like EA Play, Battlefield 6 co-marketing, although there's rumors that they'll actually get Battlefield 6 day one on Game Pass, right? You sort of see what Microsoft was going for, but you never know with COVID. Like, there's a chance Forza Horizon 5 doesn't make it, and maybe that gets shifted to spring of next year. There's this chance Starfield doesn't make it. And there's also a chance that some games in 2022 get pushed to 2023, and maybe Microsoft thinks, you know what, maybe we don't need Starfield this holiday. Maybe it's a waste to burn it right next to Halo, so we'll delay Starfield to next year. You don't really know,
there's also the issue of like ongoing semiconductor shortages.
Yeah, true.
It's like, if your stock of Xbox consoles is constantly sold out, do you save some games to drop later when you know there's going to be more stock? But at the same time, does Microsoft even need that anymore? Now it's putting their games on Steam and putting their games on PC and putting them on Xbox Game Pass for mobile devices. Like, the addressable audience on Android is billions, not tens of millions. It's billions. So, do you even need to wait for that anymore? And there are games that are being developed with APIs that are cloud native. So Minecraft Dungeons, for example, when you play Minecraft Dungeons on your phone or your tablet with touch controls, the UI looks like Minecraft Dungeons. You can tap on the UI. You can use your finger to drag and drop. Like, it's been reworked to work as a touch game that feels more native. And there'll be more Xbox games that do that in the future. Like Hellblade does that. Streets of Rage does that, and a bunch of other games do that aren't just like, oh, you've got an Xbox controller slapped on your screen. They actually change the way the game plays and controls specifically to make it easier on a touch screen. So like, I can see that happening for Starfield. I can see that happening for some of the other games that are coming down the line. And it's not necessarily a case of where Microsoft has to, bottleneck the games releasing to line them up with a console stock anymore, I guess.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's interesting to think about.
We have a bunch of super chats here, but I want to get to this one, answer it, because we're kind of sort of talking about this, and I wonder if Jeff's in chat, and if he is, if he could give us any sort of info. Faisal says, so all these games, this one is the Kojima deal with Microsoft includes 3 games. Because there was a rumor going around. I heard today from Mr. Boomsticks that he said that he is a source that the Kojima game is essentially not 1 game but 3. If the Kojima game is the horror game that he was pitching the Stadia, that was supposed to be episodic. Maybe, it's not necessarily 3 games, but like, I don't know, like 3 episodic games or something, like 3 versions, like, you know what I mean? Like, Massive Games, or Supermassive Games makes the Dark Pictures anthology, and there's 2 of them out now, Man of Medan and Little Hope, and then there's a third one coming. Maybe it could be something like that if it was a planned trilogy of some sort of uh, like horror episodic stuff, and not because I know when people see 3 games, they think, oh man, like 3 huge games like Death Stranding, each one is different, but maybe it's more like, I don't know, just 3 different episodes. You know what I'm talking about, Jez? Or at least,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
yeah.
It's I have no sourcing on the Kojima potentials personally. Just this is just speculation for fun. But that is potentially something I could see happening if it's like split into 3 parts, similar to what they're doing with Final Fantasy VII Remake, I guess, where that's going to drop in multiple parts. I don't necessarily like that for Final Fantasy, by the way.
Right.
As someone who's emotionally invested in that game and its legacy, but if the game was designed to be split into 3 parts, like a trilogy and stuff like that, the right pitch, the right type of game, the right time frames and stuff like that, because I think Microsoft wants to be a bit more strict on actually games getting delivered and stuff after some of the failings from the past Xbox One generation. But at the same time, there's also this whole COVID thing. I think COVID's thrown a wrench in the works. I think COVID has affected the game industry far more than any of them are willing to admit, because if they all start saying, well, all our games are delayed, and we're all struggling and stuff like that, and there's going to be a game drought for months on end and stuff like that, that's going to start affecting share prices, right? I don't know. But I do kind of get a sense that there's been far more disruption in reality than what we've been hearing about.
I mean, you can kind of already see it. How many games have been delayed? I mean,
yeah,
you can definitely see it. But yeah, I need to shout out everybody who is supporting the channel with super chats. I know there's a lot here, so I'm gonna get through them as fast as possible. I just want to thank you guys for showing the support, either by super chatting or hitting the like, just listening, lurking, leaving a comment. It all means, it all helps. Slow-mo, thank you, man. He says, Oxenfree had the kind of story you'd find in an actual movie. Can't wait to play the sequel and see where that story goes. Great show, guys. Thank you. And Jez, if you haven't played Oxenfree, you should really play it. I think it might still be in Game Pass, although maybe it did leave. Have you played Oxenfree before?
I've played it a bit, never completed it though.
No.
It's not really my kind of game, man.
I get it. I understand.
It's kill anything, man.
I love that game. Frost did that. Says Jez just gave it away. It's Bungie Microsoft is working with. No, it's not Bungie, right, Jez? You've said that plenty of times. Bungie and Microsoft aren't working together, so it's not them.
I mean, they could be working together. There could be something I don't know about. None of my information is anything to do with Bungie.
Killanta says, congrats, Rand on 80K. Thank you. Jose Lopez says, love the show. Any opinions on the last Digital Foundry video? Also, please, someone make a brawler with the Xbox crew of Phil Jason and Major Nelson. I actually didn't see the latest Digital Foundry video. I'm not even sure what the topic is about in that one. So
I haven't seen that either.
Yeah, so we haven't seen it. Maybe someone in chat can say what the Digital Foundry video was about. Humdrung says, can you tell us the genre? Is it multiplayer or others? Well, nope. Jez, you did say it was most likely a co-op game. You said it was connected online, like World or something?
So the Typhoon emoji game is a connected world multiplayer game. But I'm not going to say anything about the others because, it's so early. Things could change at this point.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure the Typhoon one is pretty locked in at this point.
Yeah, Faisal says, so all these Jez talked about games are not Kojima's. That's correct. P. Diddy says, Phil, if you're listening, bring Madden or NBA 2K, FIFA to Game Pass Day 1 and get all the casual gamers, or buy the licenses and make your own. Chinook Guy says, will Xbox eventually make a game engine for over-the-shoulder cinematic games like the Decima engine, maybe a side-scroller one? I mean, they own, the id engine now. So who knows what they're going to do with that? But a lot of Xbox studios, they use Unreal. And I think Halo uses their own for Halo. So that's Slipspace. And Geek says, is it an American or European studio? Jez, I would assume
Nah, I've already narrowed it down by not saying it's not Bungie. If I
Yeah,
keep narrowing it down, it's
people
gonna
will
be
figure out what it is.
it's
Yeah,
gonna it's gonna spoil it. So
yeah.
no more hints. No
Paul
more
says, "Do
hints.
you think a lot of games were delayed because of what happened to Cyberpunk?" I mean that
Hmm.
is interesting. They pushed Cyberpunk out when it clearly wasn't ready, and maybe there's some companies out there that are sort of like we can't do what Cyberpunk did, but then CD Projekt Red posted its like financial reports, and they made more money than like ever, right? Essentially,
Yes.
so it didn't really seem to hurt. Although they probably would have made more if the game actually worked and wasn't taken off the PlayStation Store, right?
Yeah, it's pretty wild how much money they made despite the backlash towards the game, but the game was great, honestly. Like a lot of people I speak to have sent me DMs saying like I agree with your review and stuff like that, and it's you know it was one of the most played games on Xbox when it came out for several weeks after it came out, and you know it got a significant amount of hate because I don't know. I feel like my perception of Cyberpunk was different because I purposefully avoided all of the marketing because I didn't want it to affect my view of the game. So I went in kind of blank. But I think a lot of people, going back and looking some of that marketing and things they said, they kind of almost suggested it would be more like Grand Theft Auto, I think. I was expecting it to be like The Witcher, but with guns, basically. And that's kind of what I got. So,
Right.
I don't know.
Um, you know what? Since we're on this topic of Xbox, and you're talking about these global publishing things, and we're talking about the exclusives and stuff, we might as well talk about that other news story that came out that basically said, from a journalist, Chris String, that basically said the big games for Xbox, even though they are coming and everybody knows they're working on them, that some of these games are years away. And this really got picked up, and the usual suspects, the fanboys, they sort of ran with it and made this narrative that all of Xbox's games are essentially years away at this point. Now, he specifically mentioned three games, Everwild, Perfect Dark, and Fable, as big games that are years away. In fact, he thought that there's a chance that those games wouldn't be coming out until there was a new Xbox. Not a new Xbox like a next-gen Xbox, like here's the Xbox Series XX coming out in 2027, 2028, but more of like a mid-gen refresh. Now, I guess I'll ask you first, Jez. What do you think are the odds of a mid-gen refresh this generation? Like, the Xbox One, it made sense because the Xbox One was underpowered and obsolete the second it hit store shelves, right? Way underpowered compared to the PS4. So the Xbox One X made a lot of sense, and it sold pretty well. Sony did the same thing with the PS4 Pro. It extended the generation. But now you have both the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, pretty powerful machines. And there are people arguing over which one is more future-proof than the other. I'll let other YouTube channels debate that and whatnot. But do you think that this console generation is going to need an upgrade in 4 years for better performance? Or do you think they sort of ride this generation out and release maybe slim versions of the Series X, PS5, the Xbox Series S when components get cheaper? They've done that like literally every single generation. So what's your take on that?
Man, I honestly don't know. I feel like I need more tech insight into the way, chips are developing and what's coming in the future and stuff to really give a decent answer on this. But looking at the past histories, I think slim versions at least are on the cards. I can see like an even smaller Xbox Series S down the line or a smaller Xbox Series X down the line. Like that's something that I can totally see happening. But the sort of like they are pretty powerful out of the box this time. It's not like the Xbox One and PS4 situation where they were both they were already obsolete when they came out compared to what PC was doing. But these consoles are like, pretty high end, and there is a lot of work they can do to optimize the tools and optimize, to get it, to get the games closer to the metal and stuff like that. That you can't really do with the PC necessarily. So I have absolutely no idea from a technical perspective, and I expect slim versions and stuff like that. But I feel like I kind of feel differently about these consoles lasting a bit longer maybe than the previous gen consoles did. I feel like that's Microsoft waiting for RDNA 2 kind of says to me that they were looking to make it a bit more future proofed, potentially. I don't know. But it's one of those wait and see moments, I think, Rand.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I'm not sure there's going to be a mid-gen refresh, but there definitely probably will be revisions, just, the cut in costs. However, that's not really the big point of this whole situation. It's the idea that the big games are years away. Now, I actually don't think Chris is wrong here, but I think the way he talked about it gave off this air of that all the exclusives are years away. Like, we've said repeatedly on this show and in my videos and even in your articles that a game like Fable and a game like Perfect Dark, we weren't expecting until the earliest 2023. Yeah. And with the potential of even something like Perfect Dark being 2024, right? Because the team is still small at the initiative. They basically announced the game as more of like a hiring, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a hiring maneuver. That's not the right word. But basically announcing the world like, hey, we're making this game, come work with the initiative, right? So that game is years away. Same thing with Fable. They used that announcement trailer as a way to kind of spur people to apply for the job. And there's still tons of open positions over at the second studio at Playground. They want to staff up to 200. I think there's like at least 50 open positions over there. So I didn't expect that game until 2023, and especially with COVID, it's probably, it's like, okay, yeah, that's looking pretty safe. So I didn't really think this was news, really, that these two particular games were coming out, in 2023. Everwild, yeah, I thought Everwild was 2022. I'll be the first to admit it. I think it was. But the creative director did leave Rare last year. I wouldn't be surprised that the game went through a soft reboot, potentially. Yeah, recruitment tool, like Tom says. They basically used the Fable and Perfect Dark announcements as a recruitment tool to, have developers come work for them. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Everwild went through a reboot, like a soft reboot. And you even had like Luis O'Connor from Rare talking about they really didn't know what the gameplay loop was, and they were still kind of testing things out. And so, like, yeah, if that game's 2023, it's not that surprising anymore. I think it's one of those things where maybe this game was announced a little bit too early, 2019. But then at that time, you didn't really have COVID, and I'm sure that affected development. But what's your take on those three games, Jez? Like, is this really news, or is this something that, anybody who's been paying attention should have realized anyways?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think it was particularly newsy either. Like, the fact that, there was an interview last year where they were talking about Everwild, and they were saying, like, yeah, we're still thinking about the gameplay loop. I kind of feel like if the game was further along in development, you might have the gameplay loop locked down. So when they were talking about the gameplay loop not being locked down, I kind of thought, yeah, maybe that's a bit further out than expected. But they talked about that like a year ago, like in July 2020. I want to say, and Fable, I wasn't expecting to be anytime soon, and certainly not Perfect Dark. There are some games that I'm a little bit more kind of like I would hope they'd come out a bit sooner, kind of like Hellblade 2, for example. I kind of hope that comes a little bit sooner because, they announced it fair while ago now, and they're like, showed it off in engine and stuff like that, and, they've been fairly public with developments on that game, showing off mocap technology and stuff like that. But at the same time, Ninja Theory did just move their entire HQ, and, integrating companies into Microsoft, it causes this disruption, like having to integrate all your technology and integrate your development pipelines and meet Microsoft's enterprise rules as a corporation. Like there's always this disruption. I've seen it at Windows Central. Not that I'm comparing Windows Central to the complexity of developing video game by no means, but even something as basic as blogging, we've had a lot of disruption from being acquired by a bigger corporation, having to follow rules, do things differently, completely change like our focuses, areas and stuff, and that's caused disruption. And I expect that that to have had an impact. Like integrating a company is going to cause disruption and potentially delays on top of the whole COVID thing, on top of all these other stuff. So, when I talk about how, like I said earlier, I do think that a lot of studios and companies, especially the publicly traded ones, are downplaying the pandemic and the disruption that it's had on their developer pipelines, because it wouldn't necessarily reflect well in the share price, right? So, but it's freaking me. Just said I'm overdosing on games already through Game Pass. It's like, yeah, it's not like there's nothing to play.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like overflowing with stuff to play right now, and also it's not like there's any consoles to buy. there's no stock. So and when there is stock, they all sell out instantly. So it's a bit of a weird situation to be in, and I don't think we've seen the last of the effects of COVID by any means. Like the pandemic's not over. The pandemic's not over.
Well, some people act like it is.
Yeah, like India's just registered like 200,000 infections of a new variant, which they're calling a double mutant. So who knows? Maybe in 6 months we'll all be back in full lockdown again. Touch. Don't want to jinx that one, so I'm going to touch wood. But do you do that in America, by the way?
Knock on wood.
Knock on wood.
I mean, yeah, some people do. I don't. I'm not that superstitious where I would do that, but yeah, some people definitely do.
I'm not superstitious either, but like literally everyone does it here. It's like just a thing, just a thing you do. But anyway, knock on wood that it won't come down to that situation again. But there is disruption, I feel like, and we just have to wait till E3 to see if they do offer some timelines. But
well, I would imagine
that's why they got so many studios.
Well, yeah, I would imagine they would have to offer some timelines. I mean, last year you could get away, even though some people were a little bit disappointed. Some people liked it. Like, this is what the roadmap is. Here are these games. Here's Fable. Here's Avowed. Here's Perfect Dark. Here's State of Decay 3. Here's Forza Motorsport. Right, all these new titles that they announced, but they didn't give any windows. And okay, so now we're a year later. They're gonna have to start giving a roadmap of, okay, what's the rest of this year look like, and then what does 2022 look like? And at least there's the thing was like, well, it's Xbox Game Studios and it's Bethesda, right? So that's the other thing I will say, like, this Chris String guy kind of overlooked, or maybe he wanted to present as like, oh, they don't have the big exclusives, because sure, while Perfect Dark and Fable and Everwild might be a couple years away, there are definitely Xbox Game Studios titles that are closer, and Bethesda games that are definitely closer to the release. Like 2022 could see the release of Avowed or Hellblade 2 or Project Mara. Starfield, like I said, could either be this year or next year. Wolfenstein 3 could be next year. Arcane Austin's next game. Like there's a list of games that potentially could be 2022, and even some that might be this year. Like, we could get Forza and Starfield this year, or they might be next year. So there are plenty of games, is what I'm trying to get at. We just don't know any of Xbox's sort of timetables on any of this stuff, which is why I think they do need to be a little bit more open about it at this year's E3. Less CGI trailers, more gameplay snippets. I'm not necessarily saying you need to do like an 8-minute demo, but people want to see gameplay now, and then people want to know what year am I looking. You don't have to give like, like Avowed is coming November 15th, 2022, but people want to know, is Avowed coming in 2022? And maybe there is some reluctance to stick to release dates of release years because of everything going on with the pandemic. You definitely see a lot of indie games recently. Microsoft just did that whole show that was 3 hours long, which Nintendo threw some shade at them for it, which was kind of funny. Where a lot of the games that were 2020, like, they didn't even want to give release date. Like, The Ascent has been talked about since last year in May, and they were at this other show and they're like, it's soon, and it's like they're still not really committing to release dates. Same thing with like 12 minutes. I think people just developers just don't want to be tied down because they don't know how everything's gonna like pan out. So while I agree with Chris that those 3 games specifically are a little bit farther away, there's plenty of other games, not only like from first party that are going to launch before then, but also from Bethesda that are going to launch before them. Plus, whatever they continue to add to Game Pass, there's always rumors about that. And maybe that's the reason Microsoft is being so aggressive with Game Pass day one titles, because maybe they know some of those games did slip a little bit. But I will say, for me personally, I'd rather have the game great. Like, delay the game if you have to. We just experienced the gen where Xbox was made fun of because they released content either that wasn't very good or was lacking actual content, and you had the memes that Xbox only releases 60 meta games. Xbox didn't basically give games the time they needed because they didn't have a lot to work with. Like, 2019, Microsoft only released Crackdown 3 and essentially, what was 2019? And Gears 5, right? 2017 was just Halo Wars 2 and like new Super Lucky's Tale. So there was a definite lack of content, and they just needed games out because they needed something. And some of the games were just pushed out before they were ready. And, Sea of Thieves, I know Sea of Thieves is incredibly popular right now, but there wasn't a ton of content at launch. Granted, 3 years later, it's one of the more popular games out there today, but it was really lacking stuff. But it was just like, the game needs to come out because we don't have anything else. But that's not the case with the current Xbox. If a game needs to be delayed because it needs more time to be good, then delay the game. I don't want to go through another generation of Xbox wondering why Microsoft is pushing out these titles to low fanfare and low critical reception because they either didn't support it as much as they should, didn't give it enough money, and didn't give it enough time. Like, delay the game if you have to. Like, I'm all for that. And that goes for everybody. Nintendo, Xbox, PlayStation, any developer. Like, I'd rather play a great game than get a game early and have it be mediocre. Like, Cyberpunk should have been delayed another year. They pushed it out before it was ready because they wanted to meet some deadlines and make their money for that fiscal year, and it almost ruined their entire reputation. And that's what Xbox was dealing with the Xbox One generation, was they were almost at the verge of ruining their entire reputation with gamers regarding a lot of this stuff. And it's just better to be like, listen, the game will come out when it's ready. We'll delay it. If it needs to be delayed a year, it needs to be delayed a year. Like, did it suck that Halo Infinite was delayed from launch? Absolutely. But if Microsoft pushed that game out knowing it wasn't ready simply because it had to reach a deadline, and Halo Infinite was worse off for it, it could have very negative effects not only on the Halo franchise, but also as Xbox as a brand. So Microsoft needs to stop doing that. And I think they realize that. They have themselves covered with all these different studios, all these even global publishing deals that Jez is talking about, because that needs to be avoided. Am I right on the money on that, or is that just a long rant? I'm sorry.
I agree in essence, and especially as someone who's quote-unquote hardcore. But there are ways that Microsoft can drive value to Xbox without having a huge stream of exclusives. The fact that Xbox One still kept up with the PS4, despite having no press, no amazing exclusives, no AAA exclusives, only one sort of soft Halo release that didn't blow the world up, The Xbox One kept pace in its Anglo-centric audiences, right? It's not like the Xbox One went the way of the Dreamcast by any means. Microsoft still made a ton of money. They're still in the green, and they still, have a healthy gaming business despite all the terribleness of the Xbox One generation. Microsoft doesn't have to rush any of these games just to appease hardcore or, care about what the press think or whatever. They don't have to rush it out for a couple of reasons. A, there's no stock of the consoles anyway. They're selling out anyway. No big deal. B, Microsoft can deliver value to Xbox with Xbox Game Pass. Even if they don't have even if they were releasing no exclusives this year, having Battlefield 6 as a Game Pass game at launch is almost as good as having an exclusive. That's like a ridiculous amount of value. You're offering a game that the competition is offering for $70 for $10. That is like an absurd amount of value. And it's these big tentpole franchises, your Call of Duty, your Battlefield, your Minecraft, whatever, that the masses want, the attach rates on games like God of War and stuff ain't that great. Hate to say it, not that great. If you look at what PlayStation's install base is versus how much God of War sold, it's not that great. Sadly,
you're gonna have people You're gonna have people coming at you for this, Jez. Someone's gonna clip this. Someone's gonna clip this, and they're gonna play this on podcasts where Jez is saying Sony's exclusives don't sell well or some sort of thing. Trust me, like they'll do that. Jez is saying God of War sold like trash. Is what they say.
I'm not saying it sold like trash, but I'm saying like if you have an 18 rated game, it's not going to pull in the kind of engagement that a Fortnite can do or a Minecraft can do and stuff like that, you know. So the point I'm trying to make is a lot of this discourse around exclusives is this bubble. Microsoft can deliver value to the masses by going Battlefield, by dropping Battlefield in Game Pass or FIFA in Game Pass. Microsoft's rewriting the rules a bit. So I don't think there's this needs to be a fear. The exclusives will come. And like Rand says, make them good, make them polished, don't rush them. You know, we've had enough of the rush job games. You know, I've had enough of like State of Decay being buggy and and Sea of Thieves not having much content. I'd rather the games launch to a big fanfare. You know, personally, but again, I'm just like hardcore. I'm not necessarily the mass addressable audience anymore. You know, it's the market is changing. You know, the market is completely changing, and Microsoft can still deliver that value without rushing out the exclusives and stuff.
Okay, I mean, fair enough. That's your take on it. I'm just saying, like, I just want quality from Xbox, and if the games are coming out in 2023 and that's when they need to come out, that's when they need to come out. You know,
that's what I want personally. But then there's also like viewing it analytically from a business perspective. You know, when your consoles are out of stock constantly because then you're not manufacturing.
So basically, what you're saying is there a reason to release any of the games now because nobody can buy the consoles now? You might as well wait till next year, when hopefully the consoles are more in stock. Is that almost sort of the argument you're making?
Like the argument I'm making is they don't need to rush because they don't need to fear this narrative that their games are being delayed. They don't need to fear that narrative because they can shut that narrative down instantly by putting FIFA or Battlefield into Game Pass day one. Okay, they can shut down that narrative straight away.
Let me ask you this question then. We just got the NPD report that the PlayStation 5 is the fastest selling system of all time, right? They can't keep that thing in stock, right?
In the US.
In the US, of course. I'm just saying that NPD is just US. Do you think it would be in Sony's best interest to then delay something like Horizon Forbidden West and God of War to 2022? Because what's the point of releasing it this year when they can't? There's a shortage and they can't sell. They can't basically sell as many PS5s as they can. Like,
I don't think Sony's in a bit of a different situation, right? Like, obviously, if they release a game like, you know, your God of Wars or your Horizon Zero Dawns, they generate cash flow, and they need cash flow. You know, Microsoft's in a bit of a different situation. Obviously, they like cash flow, but they can absorb some of that. They can absorb some of the pain to make sure these games launch in a better state. I feel, you know. At the same time, I don't think Sony's going to arbitrarily delay a game if it's ready because it's going to be cash flow for them. If a game's ready, they're gonna launch it. But at the same time, if a game's not ready, then it won't hurt them to delay it. Do I think they delay it because there's no stock? They're not meeting demand with the consoles. I don't necessarily think so. Because like I say, there's huge margins to be made on selling games, and they'll drop that as soon as it's ready, I think.
Yeah, and as Paris says, Samsura says in chat, Horizon 2 is also on the PlayStation, as we saw with Miles. That didn't really stop it from selling on the PS5. It sold better than Last of Us and Ghost of Tsushima. So yeah. I was just saying, like, you know, Sony's business model is more like we need to sell the console. Where Microsoft is like, well, we are selling the ecosystem, right? But if Sony can only produce so many, is it worth it to essentially release a game like Horizon or God of War this year when you're still going to sell out your consoles no matter if you have games or not because people want the systems? Or would it be better to just wait to, hey, you know what, March 2022? But then again, it's also on the PlayStation, so as many people are going to buy it are going to want it. Like everyone's going to have access to it. So I guess that's a completely different story. But speaking about something else, Jez, so we both agree that Fable and Everwild and Perfect Dark are years away, but Xbox definitely has stuff ready for the end of the year in 2022 when you count in like all the other different games they're making. He also mentioned that basically the Kojima deal and the third-party stuff was simply done because they didn't have any big exclusives ready. Do you agree with that? Because I personally kind of think the Kojima deal is just something that sort of fell into Xbox's lap because Sony didn't want to do something with Kojima anymore, clearly, I think, after Death Stranding. Like, Sony is Sony will shout to the rooftops when something is doing well, right? They never said how much Death Stranding sold. They never said how much Days Gone 2 sold, right? And now you know that there is no Days Gone work and at Sony Bend. They never talk about PlayStation Now, presumably because it's not doing very well. They didn't talk about Death Stranding sales. And then there was a report by VGC that basically said, hey, Kojima was talking to Stadia. Now, why would he be talking to Stadia if Sony, had his back? Or Sony wanted
to Sony. Yeah.
Right. So it means to me, it's like, okay, well, Sony wasn't interested in working with Kojima again. Maybe they gave him way too much money, too much creative control to make Death Stranding, and it didn't make as much money back. So they're like, you know what? We don't need Kojima. Right.
The game had Mads Mikkelsen in, for God's
I know,
sake.
it had a whole bunch of people.
It's expensive.
But then Stadia decided, you know what? We're not doing first-party development anymore, so we don't need any of this stuff. And you presumably think, well, Kojima's not going to go to Nintendo. So the only player left in the game on the platform side is Xbox. So Kojima comes to Xbox and it's like, hey, like we're the last one at the dance, kind of sort of thing. And Kojima's like, well, I got this. Who else am I going to go to? Activision, EA. I don't think he wants to partner with those. I think he wants to partner with the premier. He wants to partner with either Sony, Nintendo, or Xbox. I mean, he wanted to partner with Stadia, like the premier platforms. I kind of push back on this idea that they did something with Kojima simply because their games weren't ready. Because a Kojima game takes years, and if he's just starting it now, like that game's not going to be ready for years either way. So, like, that doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. I don't know about you.
Yeah. I don't know. I just hope it happens as a Kojima fan. Like, whoever Kojima partners with, just throw money at the guy. I don't care what he makes.
Well, but you didn't even finish Death. I finished Death Stranding.
Yeah, I'm glad.
I like
I'm glad
Kojima
that
game.
it exists.
I get lumped into all these people. Like, look at all these Xbox fanboys talking highly about Kojima when he didn't play Death Stranding. It's like, you ain't talking about me because I beat Death Stranding and I actually really liked it. So yeah.
I've still got it installed. I'm gonna get through it.
You won't get through it. Most people get to that chapter 3 and they fall off. I mean, people still finish the game, but that is that mark where it's like, okay, I'm sort of enjoying this, and now the story sort of kind of takes a back seat, and it's all about the gameplay. So if you don't really like the idea of delivering packages in the rain across terrain, then you probably won't really like the game very much. Because that's kind of what it's all about. But I'd be interested.
It's those weird ghost sections that are so tedious. Because like the first time you do it, it's like, oh wow, this is scary and cool and atmospheric. Second time, it's like, oh man, this is a super chore because now I've got to move really slow and hold my breath and stuff like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't care, man. I'm glad that the game exists, even though it's a bit strange. And Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, and 3 are the best games ever made, probably. So
yeah. Oscar says, you think the indie game situation will improve on Xbox? Still seeing many that skip the platform. I think a lot of that has to do with how small some of the teams are. And, everybody's trying to maybe lock down the bigger indie titles, and they get 6 months deals or year deals and stuff. Not every game comes to every platform. It's kind of the way it is. But it looks like
Yeah,
it's improving.
There is a bunch of indie games that are announced for Xbox that aren't announced for other platforms too. I think like right now, Nintendo Switch is the darling
It
platform
sure
because
is. Yep.
yeah, for indie devs, like the potentially smaller, simpler games work better on a smaller screen, and Nintendo. There's less competition from the big AAA games on Nintendo Switch. It's just a fact. So, even though like it's changed in recent years, you got like Apex and stuff like that and Overwatch. They don't play that well on Nintendo Switch. Like, if I had the choice of playing Overwatch on Nintendo Switch or even the base Xbox One, I'd probably choose the base Xbox One, frankly. But the situation has improved for AAAs, but it's still like a really great platform for indie devs to be discovered and stuff like that. So I'm not surprised that Nintendo's done so well in that
Yeah.
way. I'd honestly love to see like more AAA devs give a run at some of those classic retro formulas, like your 2D JRPGs or your side scrollers and platformers and stuff like that. Because Ori was so special, and then games like Cuphead and stuff like that. I don't know why more devs don't do it. Is it because like people don't want them as much or something? I don't know.
CYV Studio says with over a month of positive Xbox news, any small negative news will get clicks. So in my opinion, that opinion was well thought out by that guy. Interesting take. Sicka Mechanico from Xbox Era, I believe. I think that's him. I don't recognize the avatar. He says, "Oh, hey guys, didn't know you did a podcast." Yeah, it's definitely him. What aspect of Infinite are you most excited for? Do you think the whole 10-year plan could backfire on 343? That is an interesting question. So, I love Halo. Halo's my favorite franchise. I've talked about this extensively on the show. I am also a person that is equally campaign is just important as the multiplayer. Even though I will obviously play the multiplayer more. And I understand from a business perspective, from Microsoft's perspective, the multiplayer is what's going to matter most to the success of Halo Infinite. Like, I'll just say that off the bat. To Microsoft, to 343, the success of Halo Infinite will be judged on how well the multiplayer is. Now, the critical reception of the game might be more based on how well the single player is, because that's sort of kind of what game journalists review is the single player. So for me, I'm excited to see if 343 can take the criticisms that people levied at the Halo 5 campaign and improve upon it, right? I want a really good campaign. I think 343 can nail the multiplayer. I'm not worried about that aspects of the multiplayer. I loved Halo 5's multiplayer, so I think they're in a good spot. So I'm excited to see the campaign because this is their third shot. This is their third try at Halo. If they don't nail the campaign, they'd be essentially 1 for 3, right? Halo 4's campaign was good. Halo 5's was not. Halo Infinite's, like if they learned and they took the feedback, I think hopefully it's going to be great. And I'm not doubting the multiplayer. I think they got some surprises. 120 frames, it's going to run smooth. It's on free to play everywhere. So yeah, I'm excited to see what the campaign is going to be like after how poorly reviewed the single player was. Jez hates Halo. He thinks it's a Lego game. He's all about Gears. So he's going to tell you that none of the aspects of Infinite excite him because who cares about Halo? Am I right, Jez? Would that be your answer?
Hey, you're pretty close.
Yeah, exactly.
But nah, I don't hate Halo. It's just, man, there's no chainsaws or violence. It's sort of like, I don't know. It's a Lego game, man. It's a Lego game.
It's a Lego game. See what he did, Sick? It's a Lego game. Doesn't look like a Lego game anymore. More people play this Lego game than your Gears of War franchise. So,
yeah, but there's no accounting for taste.
That is true.
Justin Bieber's pretty popular.
He is pretty popular. Hey, I've used that argument before. You can't use that argument on me.
So Halo is to shooters what Justin Bieber is to pop music.
Yeah. Do you think the 10-year plan could backfire? Potentially. Like, I think it could backfire in the sense that if Halo isn't good right away, then they might have some trouble because you already have an established amount of free-to-play titles and big games that people play on a daily basis. You know, this isn't 2015 where there really weren't any live service games. This is 2021. So you already are going up against an established Call of Duty, which comes out every year, but Warzone, which people love, an established Fortnite, an established Rainbow Six Siege, an established Apex Legends, an established Grand Theft Auto 5, right? Those are just some of the ones off the top of my head. Minecraft, Roblox on Xbox are also really popular. The Rocket Leagues. Like, you have these huge franchises that people play every single day on Xbox. And Microsoft wants a piece of that pie. This is their biggest franchise. So they need to put their best foot forward.
For me, what the issue with the 10-year plan for me, right, is it's partially, part of it's my brain. I can't even envisage how a game could be fun for 10 years without some kind of progression system. Halo doesn't have a progression system. Has no levels. Has no loot system. The weapons, you just sort of pick them up and drop them when you're done with them or whatever. Your little needler, what you call it, the little gun that shoots the little pink things.
Yeah, the needler. Yeah.
It's very cute. It's like it's like a gun you see in an anime. Really.
Okay.
Like little pink magical sparkles. It's very cute game. Oh my god, I'm gonna have the whole Halo community hating on me. But anyway, I just like, how do you give a game like a service layer, a PvE service layer, without having a loot system or a level system and stuff like that? But then when I was thinking that, I thought, well, Sea of Thieves did it, kind of. So is that what Halo does? Is Halo going to become like a sort of a flat service game? Because there's honestly not many of them. Like a sort of pure sandbox flat service game where there's no really progression system beyond man, chat's really salty about this.
They really are.
But there's no real like progression system beyond the sort of the cosmetics you get. And like, do you like harvest coins and then get like different cosmetics for Master Chief and stuff like that? Like, I can't imagine why you would keep playing just to shoot more dudes unless you were growing in power. Now, maybe that's a me problem. Maybe that's because I grew up with World of Warcraft, and it's similar reason why Sea of Thieves can't hook me in is because I think if I'm gonna keep playing, I want to grow in power. But you never really grow in power in Sea of Thieves. You get like, you start off and then the game gives you more tools and more fun stuff to do potentially, but you never really grow in power. So I don't know. Is that something that Halo does? Can that work for Halo in a shooter? It's hard to think about, hard to imagine, but it's up to them to execute it at the end of the day. I'm sure they'll figure it out. They're certainly smarter than I am, and obviously Sea of Thieves is popular with no vertical progression system. So I don't know. Is that something that sounds appealing to you?
I mean, I just want to play Halo multiplayer, and if it's good, I'm gonna play it. My point is that, like, if they get off to the wrong foot,
what is a 10-year plan for Halo? Though,
sure. What is the 10-year plan? Does that include single player expansions? Does that include like monthly updates for multiplayer? My point is, it's going to be bad for Halo. Like, so what Sick is saying here is like, do you think the plan could backfire? I would say the plan could backfire if the game's not good. Like, if the multiplayer is bad, then nobody's going to play it. And if that's your plan, like, this is your game for 10 years, and nobody's going to play it for 10 years, or not nobody, people will play it, but like, if the cosmetics aren't engaging, if their battle pass system or Spartan Pass, whatever they're doing, isn't up to par, if they miss out on trends, right? Like, we know battle royale is the biggest thing in gaming, even though people may be a little bit sick of it. Look at the biggest games like Warzone, Apex Legends, Fortnite. They're all battle royale games. They're all the biggest games on Xbox. And
I guess they don't have, in a way, they don't have vertical progression either. It's like, that's in World of Warcraft, you call that borrowed power. It's like in Fortnite, you get more powerful weapons during the match, but after the match is over, you lose them all. And like League of Legends, you grow in power during the match, and then after the match ends, you start back on level 1 again. So Could they do something like that? I don't know.
I'm
It's
just
hard for
saying,
me
like,
to
if
envisage.
they miss out on a trend, like here they come out and, you know, in the time that Halo Infinite's been in production, like, you know what came and went? Oh damn, I had this.
Bring.
No, I mean, what type of shooter is Overwatch and Rainbow Six Siege? Hero shooters. Like hero shooters were huge, and then they kind of went out of style, right? And now it's all about battle royale. So if you built your whole 10-year plan around certain things and you don't give people a battle royale when it's the most popular thing, that could be a problem. If people are expecting something different and they play Halo and it's like, well, it's not modern enough, right? Like there's problems that could happen if the campaign's not good and people don't even bother playing it and they don't support it. That could be a problem if you base the next 10 years on this thing and it doesn't get supported because 343 basically kicked the bucket down the road. Like they didn't do very well, essentially. It could backfire, but it could also be a huge success if the multiplayer is great. If they have great progression, they have great cosmetics, great like constant support. You get a battle royale maybe later, not right away at launch. New maps, new modes, new campaign updates. Then yeah, it could be really successful. But we'll just have to wait and see how it all plays out when the game releases this fall. So, and
will Halo Infinite have like dungeons? Will it have raids?
I doubt it'll have. No, I doubt that.
Will it have big bullet sponges like emptying clip after clip into?
Will you shoot somebody and little numbers fly off like in all these other games, right? And how much damage you're doing?
So that'd be rad. You could take your pink sparkle gun or whatever you call it.
Oh jeez,
and, blast. Or you could take your little blue rubber baton thing, the laser sword, and just poke someone with it.
You could.
Such a pleasant, cute game Halo is.
Opithan says, "How excited are you for Wheel of Time on Amazon?" Incredibly excited. As most of you know by now, I'm the name Randall Thor is taken from the Wheel of Time. It's one of my favorite book series, and I cannot.
It's the Thor again.
Yeah, we always got to explain this. What does the million mean? Million gamer score. What's Randall Thor mean? Is Rand really your name? No, it's not. I'm really excited for it. And Rubber Knob says Halo 5 still has full servers, millions of players. Infinite will do very well. Grunts will get needled. So yeah.
Sparkle.
There is that. Halo 5.
It's a sparkle gun. It's not the needler. It's a sparkle gun now.
Yeah. And Sicka Mechanical once again says, I can forgive Jez for bad Halo opinions because he correctly labeled Little Nightmares 2 as fantastic. More people need to play that game. Indeed, Little Nightmares 2 is a fantastic game, and more people should play it. Love Little Nightmares. Love it. All right, Jez, you kind of already answered this before, but it's time. Is Xbox buying Square Enix?
I personally have no information on this, but I'm so skeptical of this Bloomberg report, right? Because it's kind of vague.
Let me
go ahead.
Let me set it up. Set it up.
Set it up.
Because it wasn't a Bloomberg report, by the way. This wasn't a report that Bloomberg wrote themselves. They were sourcing somebody else.
Oh,
did you not know that?
I did not know that.
See, this is where a lot of the information, so they were sourcing a different outlet, and that outlet said that according to some bankers that they had talked to, multiple parties were interested in a Square Enix merger and acquisition, right? But because it's Bloomberg, it obviously gets more traction, right? Bloomberg is a very prestigious outlet. And everybody online, as soon as they heard that, even though it was just, hey, there are some interested parties in Square Enix, everybody just kind of took the internet and was like, oh my God, Tencent's buying Square Enix, Xbox is buying Square Enix, Sony's buying Square Enix. It's happening, even though that's not what this report said. And honestly, I saw Huge and some other people basically say, like, this stuff happens all the time, and it's more likely somebody trying to, manipulate the stock price, which, by the way, when that report hit, the stock price jumped like 15%. So somebody made some money. And the bankers have an interest in actually trying to maybe get the stock work higher because of how bad it's been lately because of, the Avengers bomb and stuff like that. yeah, so everybody rushes to it like, oh my god, this is horrible. Someone's gonna buy Square Enix, blah 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 blah. To the point where then they had to come out earlier this morning and they said that Bloomberg has reported today that there's interest from several buyers to acquire Square Enix. However, this report is not based on any announcement by Square Enix. We do not consider selling off the company or any part of its businesses, nor have we received any offer from any third party to acquire the company. Now, of course, you always got to read in between the lines, right? A lot of people have said that this Square Enix thing completely debunks the Bloomberg thing. And absolutely doesn't, because all the Bloomberg thing said was some bankers that we talked to said there's interest in multiple buyer or multiple parties have an interest in buying Square Enix, right? And Square Enix, all they said in this thing was like, we didn't say anything. And by the way, we're not considering selling, and we've never gotten an offer from anybody. They didn't even have they didn't even say, like, it's not like they had talks, right? Because all they said is that we haven't received any talks. They didn't actually put in here where they said we haven't had any talks with somebody. All they said was they never had any offers, right? So there is a little wiggle room there where it's potentially maybe they talked to somebody, but nobody really had an offer, and they're not considering selling off the company anyways. So Square Enix thing here really doesn't debunk or disprove what Bloomberg was reporting before. That's why it always matters to look into this stuff. So go ahead, Jez. Give us your, do you think Xbox is one of these interested parties? I would say yes, because I think Xbox has plans, game plans, like one of those open the folder, get the briefcase out, where I think Xbox actually has game planned a strategy to buy any of the publishers should the need or opportunity arise. Now, will that actually happen? If like things kind of started getting rolling, I'm not really sure, but I think they are prepared for it. They looked into it. They would say this is what it would take and stuff like that. But you have your take on it. I want to hear about it.
Like, I mean, sure. I'm in a perfect world. Microsoft would probably like to own every video game publisher.
Of course they would.
Because it's more content for Game Pass. And if you are, it's similarly to how Netflix would love to have Disney's content back on Netflix and Disney not have its own service. But, them's the ropes, And I'm like you, I agree that there's probably a scenario Microsoft has envisaged, or their acquisitions team has envisioned this, where they kind of like, yeah, maybe if the need or opportunity ever arose, we could, make this pitch and make this purchase. But it seemed so vague. The report seemed so vague the way it was worded, and I admit I didn't look at the original report, but I looked at Bloomberg's report, and it seems so vague in the sense that they've been talking to people. Well, of course they have. Like, everyone always talks. People always talks about these sort of things. And, when it comes to shareholders, they want to get return on their investment. If you're an independent public company and you're not going to go public, you want to get a return on, your personal investment, or, you want an exit strategy for your company. So, and Microsoft is... Oh, I just scraped the mic there. Sorry about that if I deafened anyone there. Headbutt the microphone. But it's sort of one of those pie in the sky things. It's kind of like, well, I'm sure Capcom and Microsoft have talked in the past. I'm sure Sega and Microsoft have talked in the past. I'm sure Microsoft talked to a lot of studios in the past. Is it really news? I don't know. Is it something that's going to happen? I highly doubt it. It's like these talks happen a lot and all the time, and we say there's no smoke without fire, but I don't even feel like there's any smoke right now,
So you don't think there's any smoke to this whatsoever?
I don't think it's something. Maybe they've talked about it, but I don't see this happening for a number of reasons. Microsoft historically has not purchased any publicly traded game company that I'm aware of. And they've purchased publicly traded companies before in the past, but purchasing like a Japanese publicly traded company has a number of logistical challenges that probably aren't out of scope for Microsoft, but historically they just haven't really done that before. It'd be unprecedented. Not impossible maybe, but it's just unprecedented. But also there's like a huge bunch of challenges and logistical issues there. Square Enix has a very diverse business. Like in the West, we think of Square Enix as the company that published Final Fantasy, but that Square Enix actually sell toys. They publish manga. You know, they make anime, and they have a huge diverse array of business interests in Japan that go way out of scope for Microsoft. Like Microsoft, you know, why would Microsoft want to start? I had a conversation on Twitter about this with someone. Like, why would Microsoft want to start selling, you know, figurines? They'd rather license those out. Why would Microsoft want to start publishing manga? So they'd end up probably being layoffs. And that's also something Microsoft generally tries to avoid. They acquire companies where layoffs generally don't want to happen because Microsoft is obsessed with cleaning up its image. Like Microsoft's image during the Steve Ballmer era was so low. Like if you look at the different, their share price was like it was like $20, $25 a share at one point. And now it's something like $250 a share, something ridiculous. You know, that's like a ridiculous amount of growth. And a huge part of that is the turnaround Satya Nadella has delivered to the company. So they're very particular about their image and stuff. And if they buy it, like, you know, if they buy Square Enix and then lay off a bunch of people, that's not a good look, you know. The whole Nokia thing where they bought Nokia and then it failed and then they had to lay a load of people off. That was pretty damaging, I think. So and also there's like the whole challenge of, you know, even acquiring a Japanese company. You know, there's a myth that American companies can't acquire Japanese companies, or the Japanese government won't allow Japanese companies to get acquired and sold and stuff like that. That's not true. They will, you know, obviously Microsoft just bought Tango Gameworks, for example, but it is potentially more challenging, more logistically complicated. And, you know, there's a lot of laws and regulations that need to be checked over and a lot of stuff that needs to be done. And again, is it out of scope for Microsoft's legal team? Probably not, because Microsoft has a massive legal team. But it just adds to a growing list of logistical challenges that makes me think it's just less and less likely to happen. So I personally don't believe it's something that will happen for Microsoft. I think it's more likely Square Enix gets acquired either by a Japanese-based company or merges with a Japanese-based company. Like, I'm not even sure if Sony counts as Japanese-based anymore, because didn't they move their headquarters to America officially? I don't even know if that's.
I'm not sure. I mean, you don't think Tencent could buy some stock? They're buying a bunch of stock everywhere. You can invest a little bit. Although there is the Japanese and Chinese thing, though. Maybe.
Well, yeah, it'd be a similar kind of challenge, and you know, China and Japan relations are frosty, should we say? Similarly to how China and the West's relations are frosty, should we say? But again, money's money, and we all live in a big interconnected capitalist. Well, I was going to say hellhole, but then, you know, you know, not to get too economically political here, but. You know, it's complicated is what I'm saying, and I feel like it'd be unprecedented. And when I think about all these potential logistical challenges, I just think it falls slightly out of scope. Maybe, I don't know. So it just seems unlikely to me.
Here's what I'll say. I honestly don't think Square Enix will get acquired. Period. Right? I just think, of course, some people would be interested in it, and you look at like who suitors would be. Like Sony is already getting a lot of their games exclusive, so why would they buy the cow when they already get the milk? Right? They're already getting like Final Fantasy 16. They're already getting Forspoken. They already have Final Fantasy 7 Remake exclusive. So it's like they're already getting the cow's milk. Is there reason to actually buy the cow? Now, where I could see Microsoft being interested is if Sony decided, you know what, we should really bring this internal. And then I think Microsoft would seriously consider buying Square Enix to prevent themselves from losing Square Enix. It's not that Microsoft would want Square Enix into and of itself, right? Like they're just like, we just need to buy Square Enix. It would be to more prevent somebody else from taking the games away from Xbox. That I think would really have that more competitiveness where it's like, okay, we hear Sony's trying to buy it. Maybe we hear Amazon's trying to buy it or somebody. We can't afford to lose Square Enix off of our platform. So we need to go out there and be aggressive and potentially block this. And, if you get into a bidding war, because that's what it would be, a public company like this, you're not going to outbid Microsoft if Microsoft truly wants the company, right?
Yeah.
So I think Microsoft would be interested in Square Enix simply because of a defensive measure against whoever was getting it. And it would help. It would help Microsoft's presence in Japan. Certainly, if they did buy it, you would have huge legacy franchises. Final Fantasies, the Kingdom Hearts, Legends of Mana, like Miles Dampier loves. But you could almost make the sense that maybe Square Enix doesn't fit what Microsoft's trying to do. And honestly, I would actually want Microsoft to just buy off the Western arm of Square. Like, just buy Eidos Montreal from them, get the Deus Ex IP, take Crystal Dynamics off of Square, and just add Crystal Dynamics and Eidos Montreal to Xbox Game Studios or Bethesda, and just kind of take over their Western divisions. And Square Enix can just continue to run their Japanese side. I know people always, like, when they see these rumors, it's like, yeah. And normally you would poo-poo it, like, whatever. The Square Enix, you're talking like probably $10 billion, $12 billion, right? Because it's public. But the Bethesda deal really changed everything for a lot, right? You see Microsoft snatch up a publisher for $7.5 billion, kind of changed the landscape a little bit. And, a lot of Sony fans are like, PlayStation needs to respond. And if they did buy Square Enix, well, that would be the response. And it kind of starts that war. And for a while there, we thought like Google would be getting involved, but then they sort of backed out. Is Amazon getting involved? With their head of Luna leaving, maybe not. And FC Violence, right? Rand, they need more Japanese or Asian stuff. I completely agree with you. But I don't necessarily think Microsoft or Phil would want Square Enix simply to have Square Enix. It would be a defensive position. They definitely do want more Japanese and Asian stuff. The question is spending that type of money worth it to them? And I don't know if that's the case. Like, I understand why they bought Bethesda. There was a great relationship there, but there isn't really that relationship between Xbox and Square Enix like there was with Xbox and Bethesda. And like, if I had to make a guess now, I would say, well, I don't think Square Enix is going to get bought. I think it's just people trying to raise the stock prices. Even though I do think there are interested parties, I don't think I mean, this could come back to bite me in the ass, and I could be wrong, but I don't really think Square Enix is going to sell. Maybe they do. I don't know. Maybe they do. But if they, see, this is the thing. Of course, I would want Microsoft to buy Square Enix. That's just more games for us, more games for Game Pass, a presence in Japan, which is what they wanted, like huge legendary franchises. Bethesda gave them Fallout and Elder Scrolls and Doom and all this stuff. Square Enix would give them Tomb Raider and Deus Ex and Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest and, huge. So, I don't know. Everybody loves to kind of like rush to judgment on these sort of things, and I'm always more of a kind of like laid back and see what happens. But I don't know. If I had to take a guess, I think it would be more Tencent, and if I had to put a second one up there, it'd be Sony. But if Microsoft was truly wanting to put up a fight because they didn't want to lose it, then Sony's going to have to pay a ton. And even though they do have a lot of cash on hand, they have $40 billion or something. Acquiring Square Enix is basically going to take off 11 or 12 from that. And is Sony really going to be like, you know what? We're okay with PlayStation basically taking a third of our cash on hand for this purchase when we were getting a lot of the benefits of having those games exclusive to our platform? Maybe it'd be a full we know that Sony wants to get more into anime and all this stuff, and Square Enix does kind of do some of that stuff. So I don't know.
Did you watch Fancy Spirits Within?
Actually, I did not. No, I did not watch that. That was the reason why Sony didn't. Isn't that the reason why Sony bought a bunch of stock in the first place?
I can't remember, but didn't they sell their stock?
Well, they did sell their stock, but Final Fantasy Spirits Within bombed so badly that Square needed some help, and I know Sony did buy and invest a whole bunch and owned
Right.
a portion of it, but I think they did sell a lot of their stock in Square
Right.
Enix. But
I,
this is just the thing of like everybody's looking to sell. Like almost every month, there's Embracers bought somebody new, right? Microsoft buys Bethesda, and there's still rumors that they're looking kind of like because of what Phil and Satya are saying. They're like, we're gonna buy where it makes sense. You know, rumors about PlayStation. It just definitely seems like there's this. Now's the time to sell. If you have a video game company, like now's the time to sell, and you'd be at your highest valuation, getting the most for your stockholders, getting the most for the owners. So I mean, Square, like, if you want to, I just imagine the day you wake up. Say you wake up at 7:50. You're like, have your coffee. You're like, oh, what's going on? You log on to Twitter, and all you see is Microsoft loves Square Enix. And like the same, like the internet would. You thought the Bethesda thing was big, but if they were somehow able to grab Square Enix, the salt would be absolutely enormous. Because Square Enix has more of a legacy with PlayStation. But even still, like it's hard to say it'll happen. But they bought Bethesda. There's things happening behind the scenes. I mean, we even have this thing here, Jez, about you were in a conversation with ACG where he talked about Metal Gear Solid, right? And how he has good sources that there's a lot of big IPs up for sale, and all that stuff. Like, is it just a time where it's like, if you're going to sell your property, license out your IP or whatever, this is the time to do it? Like, what's your take on the whole Metal Gear Solid thing? Is because there's rumors that maybe Microsoft would license Metal Gear from Konami for Kojima to work on. And even our buddy Paris had a tweet where he's like, hear me out. Microsoft licenses the Metal Gear franchise, and Arcane develops it with Hideo Kojima overseeing. Right? Like, what do you take on all this and your conversation with Carrick from ACG about it?
well, I don't. First of all, I don't believe Microsoft would do that. Like, it's so random to buy an IP like that. Microsoft hasn't done that in a really long time, and I don't think they need to. They've got all this other legacy IP. Why drop like however many millions buying up the rights to a random IP that you can't make Metal Gear without Hideo Kojima. I'm sorry, you just can't do it. So like, does he even want to work on it anymore? Is he not closed that chapter in his life and moved on? I have no idea. It just seems so out there and weird, and it just reads like more like someone's wish list than reality. Could be completely wrong, but I just don't believe it personally. But I have no idea what Konami's business model is. It was interesting that Konami appeared in Nintendo's indie showcase. Did you see this week?
Yeah, I did. I did see that. Yeah.
To qualify as an indie studio with Microsoft, at least, you have to be earning below a certain threshold. And I'm sure it's similar for Nintendo. To qualify for their like indie support or their indie program, your company's gaming revenue has to be below a certain amount. For example, like Rebellion's a pretty huge studio. Certainly not like what you'd think of as a small indie dev, but they are considered an indie dev as far as Idea Xbox is concerned, because they're not that big. They're sort of like on the threshold, So Konami went from being like this super powerhouse, publicly traded company of video game juggernaut to being this sort of weird gambling company that makes pachinko machines, but also owns all these great legacy gaming IP. But their video gaming revenue is so low that they now crossed into Nintendo's indie threshold, which is like, if I was Konami, like maybe selling those IP would be an easy way to raise cash. But it's also kind of like, why would Microsoft do that? Like, why do they need to do that? Like, surely if they were thinking about doing this, wouldn't they have done it before they announced Perfect Dark? because I kind of feel like I don't want to hate on Perfect Dark fans here. Kind of feel like Metal Gear as a stealth game has a bit more pull than Perfect Dark as like brand power. Like if that's something that we're even considering doing, isn't that something like you would necessarily offer to the initiative as someone who was exploring making a stealth game? You know, it's just doesn't make any sense to me. It just doesn't make any sense, man.
I know, because you
I
always
don't
talk
get
about margins of games and how the license eats into those margins.
like
And
why even license it? You know, it's just weird to me. If you split in the royalties between Konami and Kojima, and then it just makes no sense to me, man. It just makes no sense. Like Microsoft, and also because I know how many games Microsoft has on its docket right now. I just feel like it's unnecessary, you know.
but like Metal Gear would be like, okay, here's Metal Gear, here's Kojima. That would be like, oh my god, that would be a thing that would like people's eyeballs would be on it, right? And I mean, I read your conversation with Carrick. Carrick does know some stuff, so like who knows? We could. I mean, IP's up for sale. You never really see IPs get sold. I mean, even the last one I can think about off the top of my head is I was still kind of shocked when Microsoft purchased the Gears of War IP from Epic. And the only reason Epic sold it was because they said they were pretty much done with the franchise. That after 3, they didn't think it was financially responsible to make any more Gears games because as the Gears games continued, while the profits were high on Gears 1, the cost of making each game rose so significantly that they basically weren't making that much money by Gears 3. And so, like, we're done with this. And Microsoft still wanted to continue the Gears franchise, so they're like, all right, we'll buy the Gears IP from you. And I'm trying to even think of any other IPs that have sort of switched hands this generation, or even like over the past like decade or like I can't really think of any. Did anybody know what gaming IPs have switched hands? I can't think of anything.
The only ones I can even think of, like off the top of my head, from like a really long time ago, is like Interplay bleeding some of its IP to Bethesda, for like Fallout, for example. And I think I want to say Night Dive Studio reacquired the rights to System Shock or something like that. Like this is it's not something that happens often.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Well,
Phil Swift VCard says Sunset Overdrive is one example.
well, but
and I suppose Alan Wake.
So yeah, Insomniac owns Sunset Overdrive, right? Sony just bought them, so it'd be the same thing as Bethesda. Like they own Doom, Xbox bought Bethesda. Now Xbox owns Doom. The IP itself didn't sell. It's just that since Sunset Overdrive is owned by Insomniac, it went with them. Pong Soul says the Midway IPs were sold off. Actually, Pong I think's right because Midway had the Mortal Kombat stuff, but then Warner Brothers bought them as well. Alan Wake just kind of reverted back to Remedy. Microsoft actually did Microsoft own Alan Wake, the IP? I think they did. Trying to think if Microsoft owned the IP. I think they did, and then whether or not there was something where after unused it goes back to Remedy. Alan Wake did go back, but I'm not sure they paid anything for it. I was talking about like straight up like sold. Tom says IO bought Hitman back as well. I'm still not sure about that. You can go read articles where it'll say like IO owns the Hitman franchise, but at the last Square Enix thing, they announced it. Square Enix announced a Hitman mobile game, and
I think Square Enix still own Hitman.
Yeah, and if you look at the trademarks of Hitman, Square Enix is still the registered owner of the trademark. I think IO just has the exclusive contract to make Hitman games for console. I don't think they sold it to him. I don't know. I could be wrong, and it's always that area where it's just like, does IO own Hitman or does Square Enix still own it? See what other people
all
say
this
here.
legal rights and complications is one reason Microsoft didn't want to grab Warner Brothers.
So Pong Soul says Microsoft, Xbox bought Hydro Thunder from Midway. Humdrung says EA sold Wasteland to In Exile. Did you know that, Jez?
I didn't know they'd sold it, but I know that In Exile didn't own the Wasteland. It had to revert back to them.
Yeah. Interesting.
See, everyone's saying IO got Hitman. I don't think they did. Like Square Enix did all the PR for Hitman. Like, and it's still Hitman is still registered trademark Square Enix.
Yeah, I mean, if you look up the trademark for Hitman, it's still Square Enix. It's not IO Interactive, and I mean, Square Enix is making a Hitman mobile game. I mean, to me, that says they still own the rights to Hitman if they're making a mobile game.
I think what it is probably more to do with. I think it's more to do with IO having exclusive rights to build Hitman games for the core platforms. Because, like you say, Square Enix is making a Hitman mobile game, and Square Enix hasn't licensed the IP from IO Interactive to make that. So I don't know. I suppose I could just reach out to Square Enix for clarification on that, but it's a bit strange.
Yeah. Now moving on from that, there's this big rumor, Jez, I wanted to talk to you about. And if you guys are still enjoying the show, make sure you hit the like button. I think we're we still got 1,400 people watching, 1,430. We over 600 likes. Let's see if we can get to 700. Thank you guys for being here. Nintendo and Xbox, Jez. You also wrote this in your article, citing Jeff Grubb and Special Ed about potential partnerships. Like Jeff Grubb said that everything on that shelf has some significance. The Nintendo Switch was there. Special Ed said, hey, you'll find out more about their partnership at the end of the year. You wrote about it. Do you think there's some truth to this? Is Xbox and Nintendo doing something? And if so, what could it be?
I have no inside information about Nintendo and Xbox partnering, but I do know that Nintendo and Microsoft are fairly close. Nintendo of America's headquarters is literally down the road from Redmond's campus, from Microsoft's campus. And people there hang out. Nintendo and Microsoft people hang out, They work together, Nintendo are clients of Microsoft and stuff like that for technology and, Office and stuff like that. So it's not like they're strangers to each other. And obviously they collaborated very hard on Minecraft and stuff like that. And, we got Minecraft Steve and Alex into Super Smash Brothers, which is something I personally didn't believe would happen, but here we are.
Mm-hmm.
So could something happen? I mean, I don't see why not. There's a huge array of scenarios. There's a huge array of scenarios that you can imagine or envision with Nintendo and Microsoft working together. The obvious one is Xbox Game Pass Cloud coming to Nintendo Switch. I think like having Halo Infinite on the Nintendo Switch via the cloud is something Microsoft would love to do. Increases the addressable audience by tens of millions. Also, potentially gives Nintendo a cut of Game Pass sales through their store, and also brings some AAA games to Nintendo's platform that otherwise probably wouldn't have done if it wasn't for the cloud. So that is the obvious one for me. There's no real handheld gaming console that fits xCloud as well as the Nintendo Switch does. For me, that's a match made in heaven. So that's the obvious one. Beyond that, I can't really imagine anything else. I don't know. What do you think? Or is that
before I give my answer, I just got to give a shout out to iSiler18. I missed his super chat, but he says, if Xbox buys Square Enix, then Rand has to forfeit his Ferrari to Jez. Well, Jez is the one that doesn't believe it's ever going to happen, so shouldn't he have to sell his Ferrari to me? Or just give it to me? I'm saying, like, I could see it happening in a defensive position. Jez is like, never, mate. It's never happening, mate. So
why am I Australian now?
I don't know. You say mate sometimes. You say mate.
No, but you said it with an Australian accent.
I'm sorry. UK accent's a little bit harder for me to do. Andrew says Blue Dragon news. Nope, not that I've heard of. I don't expect there to be another Blue Dragon. Achievement says Kojima doesn't want anything to do with Metal Gear. He thought it should end with 4. And Ralph Wiggum says, to the man with the million is partner in crime, most honest and down-to-earth people in the gaming industry. Thank you for everything. Thank you for your support, brother. It means a lot. And thank you for everybody for still being here. We are on like 2 hours and 20 minutes, and we're still going strong. So here's what I think, Jez.
I just want to say, by the way, it's really funny that a bunch of people are coming into chat and telling us to buy Dogecoin.
You're right. Buy Dogecoin. What is Dogecoin? I see the meme, but what is it? I don't know.
It's a cryptocurrency.
It's a cryptocurrency, but it's a joke, right? Like it's just like it's a joke of a like. Am I?
No, it's taking off.
Oh, is it?
So like I don't know. I suppose it might be created as a joke or a meme or whatever. It's the Doge meme, you know.
And the Doge meme. Okay.
And they made a crypto, and now you know, Elon Musk tweeted about it a few times, and the last couple of days it's skyrocketed. So a bunch of people have made a lot of money on this bloody meme coin. What is modern society?
I don't know.
Are we gonna be like buying video games and Xbox Game Pass subscription with Dogecoin in the future? Is that gonna be the global currency? That Doge meme? My God, man. Oh man.
Dogecoin. Yeah,
I've got some
Tom says Elon Musk keeps on talking about it, so it keeps on going up. That is true. Trey says 10,000 Doge made some serious cash today. Yeah, everybody's talking about Dogecoin.
I have a bunch of Ethereum crypto, but like the app I use doesn't stock Dogecoin, so I can't invest in that sadly. But if they ever stock it, I'm totally gonna get on this meme train. Take Dogecoin to the moon, baby.
So here's my take on Nintendo stuff. Like, I think clearly Microsoft wants Game Pass on Switch. They probably would also put Game Pass on PlayStation if they could. I mean, all you gotta do is take Phil at his word when he says about the Bethesda games that they would be on platforms be on platforms where Game Pass exists. He never ruled out Nintendo and never ruled out PlayStation. He wants that service everywhere. And while I think me and Jez both kind of think that PlayStation's not likely, simply because they're gonna have their own thing, I do think it's possible they could get it on the Switch, right? Yeah. So obviously Microsoft would want it there. 70 million customers on the Switch, very engaged, spend a lot of money. Potentially you subscribe to a curated version of Xbox Game Pass. They get a little more inroad in Japan. Can you imagine Kojima makes this Xbox game, it's in Game Pass, but then because Game Pass is on the Switch, it's also going to be played in Japan, and like people in Japan could subscribe to Game Pass on the Switch to play Kojima's game, which is an Xbox exclusive. Like, it's kind of crazy to think about, and it's something that could happen. Now, the question is, what does Nintendo get out of all that? Why would Nintendo want Game Pass on their service? Obviously, it would be some sort of monetary reimbursement, a cut of subscriptions. And maybe it's not that exciting as Game Pass on the Switch. Maybe it's just, hey, you know what? Nintendo and Microsoft have come to an agreement to use Azure for future stuff, game streaming, back-end things, just like Sony did that agreement with PlayStation. Sony did it with Microsoft, rather, right? They agreed to use Azure. Maybe Nintendo could do the exact same thing, and it's not really that exciting. Or, and Jez, I don't know if you saw this, Halo put out some artwork where Mario was Master Chief, and they called it The Adventures of Mario and Peach Tana. I don't know if you saw that on Instagram.
I didn't.
But there's been rumors swirling for years that Halo Master Chief is being tested on the Switch, that Microsoft wants to put it out on the Switch, and there's still 2 fighters left for Super Smash Brothers. Could Master Chief come to Smash Brothers? That would all kind of fit the Nintendo Switch thing on Phil's shelf. So
I totally see Master Chief hitting. Smash Brothers has a bunch of characters that are nowhere near as popular as Master Chief. But I also think that Halo would fit really well on Switch because it's sort of like, it's all cute and colorful and vibrant. Basically, Halo is the Mario of shooters.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be straight up. No,
Halo's the what of shooters?
Mario. It's
Jesus.
all bright. It's bright and colorful. It's cute. It's sparkly.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, it's the Lego game of shooters. Get it out of your system, Jez. Go right ahead.
Oh man.
I don't know. Like, I think Xbox fans will be a little bit divided on if Game Pass comes to Switch, because that would mean like all the Xbox exclusives would come to Switch, and I've already seen some pushback on that idea of being like, well, what do we get out of it? Like, you're never gonna get Mario's never coming to Xbox, and neither is Zelda. Like, this just more fuels Microsoft's and Xbox's business goals of putting Game Pass everywhere, getting eyes all over the place, having it be the dominant subscription service, and maybe for some Xbox gamers that would be their preferred way to play mobily. Like, you could be able to, play your Xbox games on the go with the Switch, which is better suited for that type of stuff because it's a gaming handheld rather than the phone. So we'll have to wait and see if it does happen. These sort of things, this could get delayed to next year. It could never happen. But I would not be surprised if any one of those three things happens. One of them is exciting and could change the industry in a way. Nintendo and Xbox working together, Game Pass on Switch. Master Chief it'd be hilarious to see him in Smash. But the other one where it's just like
bring all these like little cute little grunt friends.
Yeah. But the Azure deal, I mean, that would just be boring. Shout out to Gaming Forte. He says, joke all you want. I got in at 3 on a $600 investment. So Forte's out here making money hand over fist. He got in at Dogecoin at 3, and he spent $600. What is Dogecoin worth right now? What's it up to?
I don't know. It's like 0.3 or something like that. Oh man. I don't know.
Well, if he got in at 3 and he spent $600, I mean, is it worth 100 now or something?
It hasn't. I don't know if Dogecoin has hit $1 yet. I don't think. But like the app, it brought down the Robinhood app. Man, we're turning into an investment podcast.
I guess so.
I just want to say, nothing we say on this podcast should be taken as legal advice or financial advice. Me and Rand are not financial advisors. But yeah, okay, so it's 38 cents to a Dogecoin right now.
Well, then why are you being like, I got in at 3 at 600 or whatever it is? That means your investment.
Maybe it means point
0.3? I mean, isn't that 0.3 now? Or did you get in at 0.03?
I don't know. Maybe 0.03.
Oh, maybe
3 cents
means he spent 60, made 600.
Oh, he got into 3 cents. He said.
Oh, he got into 3 cents. Okay.
Yeah. So now it's 40 cents. So that's a sick profit, man.
Yeah. Sell now.
Diamond hands.
Yeah.
Old.
Chinak guy says Smash characters have to be popular in Japan to be in Smash. Okay, I guess. DMCR says, haha, Dogecoin, it's a play on words. It said like dog-e coin or doggy coin. And Hectic World says, if Game Pass comes to Switch, then I will buy a Switch. Until then, not buying one. No need for Mario. Yeah.
I always thought that the Doge meme was like, because some people call their dog like Doge. I used to call my dog Doge. I always thought it came from that. I guess not. But yeah, this has become a financial advice podcast.
Yeah, you know what? I think this would be a good time to take some questions. So if you guys have any questions, make sure you just at me or Jez in the chat, and hopefully we see them. I want to thank everybody who tuned into the show today. We had well over 1,400 people. The support's always been amazing. So if you enjoyed the show, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe if it was your first time here. If you haven't already, you can always hit that notification bell if you want to be notified immediately when this podcast is live or when my videos drop. You can follow me and Jez on Twitter. The info's on screen with the NBA 2K stuff, at Jez Corden, at Rand_L, blah, blah. It's a whole bunch of underscores. Links, it's in the description anyways. So, we thank you. And if you're listening to this later on iTunes and Spotify, you're awesome as well. We love it. It's pretty cool to put it on the podcast services because not everybody wants to listen to it live on YouTube or even wants to use YouTube on their phone. So the podcast stuff is the apps is always good to do. Isiler says, imagine Doom in Smash Brothers. It would be rated M. Yeah, that would be interesting.
They got I thought it was weird when they put Solid Snake in Smash Brothers. Was it Brawl or Melee? I can't. I don't know the names of the games, but when they put not Master Chief, when they put Solid Snake in there, I thought, man, Solid Snake's quite a mature character from a pretty mature game, So if they put in Solid Snake in there, I don't see why they don't put Doom Guy in there. That'd be hilarious. And that also Doom Guy has those little cute little figurine versions. It could be like a cute Doom Guy.
Yeah. David says, Jen, when is Rand playing Pokemon Snap? Rand's not playing Pokemon Snap, David. I'm sorry, and I don't care what Jez has to say about it. Not happening.
What if I give you some Dogecoin?
Oh, jeez. Soma King says, any news on older controllers getting the newly reduced latency update? Thought that was due near launch. All they said was that it would come in 2021. But there hasn't been any updates on that, unless you've heard differently, Jez.
I haven't heard anything about that. I've tried to dig because someone else DM'd me about that and asked me about it, and I did look into it, but haven't been able to find anything yet. I'm guessing it's just a matter of priorities and what they're working on. They were teasing some kind of new feature for Monday. Maybe that's it. Don't know, but maybe not. I guess we'll find out.
Two Player says, when Double Fine and Obsidian went to Xbox for funding, Phil started talks about acquiring them. Is this possible with Kojima? It's unlikely he'll be able to develop AAA games without a deal. I mean, Miles sort of had a theory about that, right? I saw his tweet.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose there's maybe a scenario where Kojima Productions joins Microsoft in an acquisition. I mean, there's always some kind of thing. Ultimately, Kojima just wants to be able to make AAA games and push the art of his craft.
Mm-hmm.
And if Microsoft enables him to do that, I'm sure there is a deal that exists that could happen, that could lead to that. But it's also kind of is Microsoft willing to do that? And can't they just work on a partnership? Maybe Kojima's wary of working for a corporation again and getting, having to deal with all the political, BS potentially that it's probably, wasn't fun to deal with at Konami. Maybe he just wants to do a Bungie-like kind of deal. Or, well, I know Bungie was owned by Microsoft, right?
Yes, they were.
I always get that mixed up. So, but yeah, maybe they want to do I guess more like Bungie and Activision kind of deal, where Bungie signed a multi-year deal to work directly with Activision, have their cloud provision and stuff like that, and then they, parted ways. Maybe Kojima wants that option, keep the door open to leave. And maybe on that basis, they do some kind of deal similar to Bungie and Activision. But, who knows? Microsoft has a lot of money. They've got a lot of gaps to fill in their lineup still, potentially. And who knows what the future will bring.
Jay the Erp says, just trying to keep the dream alive. # bring back Killer Instinct. Well, it's me and Jez have talked about on the show. Microsoft wants to do another Killer Instinct. They just either haven't liked a pitch that they've gotten or haven't found somebody to make one, right? They definitely do want to do it.
A lot of studios out there that are dedicated to fighting games, really. Mm-hmm. And if they have their franchises already, your Mortal Kombat or your Street Fighter and stuff like that. Man, Iron Galaxy and the first dev, whose name I can't even remember because I'm getting old. Who was the first dev called? Iron Galaxy was the second dev. And then Amazon bought Killer Instinct's developer and kind of disrupted the whole game.
Yeah.
That was...
Humdrunk says, Jez, I feel like it's mostly multiplayer games. Are there any dedicated single-player games like Starfield?
Out of the ones I was teasing, I don't want to give anything away beyond the Typhoon being a multiplayer game, but, I'm sure that Microsoft's broader portfolio will include dedicated single-player games. But at the same time, Microsoft's sort of always seen a lot of success with the multiplayer games. So, I don't know. I think one of the reasons they bought Bethesda in the first place was to improve they're offering.
Yeah.
Everyone's saying Double Helix, Killer Instinct's first dev. I completely forgot that, but yeah.
It depends on what this. I mean, there definitely will be single player games, so you don't need to worry
There will be
about that. Nick says, "Why was Skate 2 never made back compat?" No idea. Maybe licensing issues with music and stuff like that. Not sure.
Yeah, that's an issue. Licensing issue with music and all the games.
Captain Takashi says, Jez and Rand, Monday is news. Monday is news. Boys gonna drop any hints? I don't know anything going on Monday. Do you?
There's the only thing I know is happening on Monday is something to do with the Xbox Insider, a new build Xbox. There's going to be some new feature, something like that. But I don't think there's going to be any major huge news on Monday.
Yeah,
but I could be wrong.
I mean, never know. Maybe Microsoft drops a big announcement. Who knows? Another Game Pass thing.
Acquiring Nintendo.
Jesse Darby says, Jez, when is your game going into Game Pass?
Oh man, I mean that'd be the dream, right? To have a game in Game Pass, that'd be so cool. But I think when it comes to Game Pass, they want games to have a certain level of quality, because obviously you don't want trash going into Game Pass. So I think my game will be a few years away from ascending the trash bracket. But who knows? I'm gonna give it my all. I'm gonna give it a good go, and hopefully maybe one day I can have a game that's actually semi decent.
Yeah, Cepho says, what do you think of the R showcase? I think you meant Resident Evil showcase. I actually didn't watch it because I don't need to be sold on Resident Evil. So I just want to kind of go into it as blind as possible. I know they have a new Mercenaries mode people wanted. PlayStation.
Why are they doing Mercenaries mode on top of that stupid reverse mode?
I don't know.
Why don't they just go all in on making Mercenaries good instead of man? Sometimes I think the people who run the Resident Evil IP are just sort of winging it,
Yeah.
That multiplayer mode from Resident Evil 3 was pure trash.
Yeah. PlayStation does have the exclusive demo, which I always find funny. Like when PlayStation, we can play the demo, a couple weeks early. Like, who cares about demos? Like it's you wasted money on demos. Okay, dude. Whatever. Sylar says, shouldn't we have heard about a PC version of Final Fantasy VII by now? I recall PC code being found in a data mine around its launch last year. Well, there is some sort of Final Fantasy digital fan fest happening next month. Maybe that's where you get an announcement about a PC version. Who knows? Maybe it's not coming to PC. I think it is. I just don't think it's coming to Xbox this year, if I had to guess. Justy Spud says, Rand, do you think Tango Gameworks is working on Silent Hill? Well, we know they're working on Ghostwire Tokyo. It would.
They're not working on Silent Hill.
See, Jez is like, they ain't working on Silent Hill.
They're not working on Silent Hill.
So that's you go.
Just wishful thinking.
I mean, it would be cool. Darren wants to know, Rand, how's your weight loss adventure going? Good on Jez for his continued success. Mine was going good for a bit, and then the holidays hit, and I kind of got off of it, so I need to get back on it. But yeah, Jez is doing amazing. So all congrats to Jez.
I'm 33 pounds down now in 6 weeks. So 33 pounds in 6 weeks. Gonna push that next week. Hopefully lose more next week. But
excellent. That's good. That's great. Let's see what else we got here. Isylar says Mercenaries mode seems out of place for this style of Resident Evil, in my opinion. I'm more shocked it skipped Resident Evil 2 and 3. Neo Cognito says, wouldn't Game Pass and Switch be considered a competing offering to the Series S? I don't think so, because presumably if they can get Game Pass on Switch, it would just be first party. The Series S would get you all the third-party games that you can play on the console. It would be a more complementary thing. Like Xbox owners could use their Switch as a portable Xbox player if they wanted to, and it would just further Microsoft's own goals of putting Game Pass in front of more gamers, getting more subscribers. And if they get more subscribers, that means they can reinvest the money back into Game Pass, get more day one titles, big AAA titles, more indie titles, and maybe more money for Microsoft to go invest in studios, because they know because you have 50 million subs, you need more content, and you either go out and buy the content or buy the studio. So it's just gonna, the investment just goes right back in. HK Games says
the business is not selling consoles anymore. Mm-hmm. The business is selling games. The business is selling microtransactions and DLC and stuff like that. The business is not selling consoles. When people think like, oh my god, if Game Pass Cloud is on Switch, then it means the Xbox console is devalued and Microsoft will stop making consoles. They won't, because the developer environment for the cloud is Xbox console. The server blades are made of Xbox consoles, so they won't stop manufacturing Xbox consoles, because basically you've got an xCloud server blade in your house that's at a different shape. You know, that literally xCloud is a rackable Xbox, so it's totally complementary. You have to think of the Xbox platform as this digital thing that exists, and that any endpoint where Xbox Game Pass exists, that is the Xbox platform. Microsoft will keep making hardware, similarly to how they make PC hardware. You know, they have the whole Surface PCs, even though there's HP, there's Dell, there's Razer, there's all these other companies making PCs. Why does Microsoft make PCs as well? It's because, well, frankly, Surface Ultrabooks are some of the best out there. And similarly, Xbox consoles will be the best way to play games built on the Xbox developer environment. Like, even on the cloud, even with the Nintendo Switch, you're still going to get tiny 7-inch screen that's pretty trash, frankly. Like, the display on the Nintendo Switch is awful. The battery life is not great. And there's the hardware on the Nintendo Switch is not the premier way to experience these games. That's always going to be the Xbox hardware. So Xbox would be the best place to play. Nintendo Switch would be complementary. Mobile phone would be complementary. And then if you've got a PC, then great. But, you know, not everyone can afford a higher-end PC, blah, 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 blah. Xbox console's not going away, is my point.
Yeah. Whittier says, Jez, you've said you're doing game creation lessons. Have you thought about articles and videos tracing your progress for Windows Central? It might inspire people.
Yeah, I'm actually going to write one next week. I'm going to write an article like I started learning game development, and you can too. You know, I am far away from being able to make a game without using the course. But what I can do is tell people I want to dispel some of the fear around getting into game development, because I'm not smart particularly. Like, I dropped out of high school. I totally failed math at school. Like, even like totally failed it. Like, all that stuff, I just was not interested in school or whatever. But actually, like, learning game dev and doing it on udemy.com, which is where I've been doing it. And even on YouTube, there's so many channels on YouTube dedicated to learning Unity and Unreal Engine and stuff like that. And they literally talk you through every step, you know. So, like, having a course that explains the structure of making a game is really great. And then you can take what you learn and then apply it to, like, all the YouTube video tutorials that are out there. And I don't know if you saw, like, some of the stuff I put on Twitter of just random stuff that I've made playing around and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really not that hard if you've got the time to put in to learn it. So I'm definitely going to write about that next week, and hopefully, you know, if you're interested in learning game development, even as a hobbyist, I don't expect to be the next Kojima, but if I can make a fun little game people can mess around with, you know, for a few minutes, I'll be happy. That'll do me, right?
Yeah. Nick says expected DOA of FF7 remake on Xbox consoles next year. I would say maybe
next year. Yeah, I'm not expecting Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
Remake anytime soon, but who knows? No, I don't have any information, but
yeah.
I guess you don't either, right?
Yeah, I just keep on hearing that it's, I mean, as of a few months ago, there was no plans to bring it to Xbox this year, so we'll see. HK Gaming says Randall Thor is a goddamn hero. Damn straight. Thank you. Let's see what else we got here. Crispy Rambo says, have you seen that Bethesda Microsoft changed the loot boxes in ESO? All the loot box items cannot be earned in game through challenges and missions. I did not know that. Did you, Jed?
Can you say that again?
That they changed the loot boxes in ESO. That all the loot boxes can now be earned in game through challenges and missions. I guess it wasn't different earlier.
Oh wow, I did not see that. I will check that out. But that is interesting. Like, I honestly am convinced that some of the weird stuff that Bethesda did towards the last few years before getting acquired, like Wolfenstein Youngblood with its weird microtransactions and stuff like that. Like, I kind of feel like that was ZeniMax floundering a bit and thinking like, where the hell do we go now? What do we do with this? And I'm hoping that with Xbox Game Pass, Microsoft can just be like, just make games,
Yeah,
Don't
just make some good games. That's all we need.
just make some good games.
Yeah,
I don't think we're gonna see. I don't think we're gonna see Wolfenstein Youngblood or forced microtransactions in games that don't need them anymore.
yeah.
I think that was just a ZeniMax thing that just died with the company being acquired. So
Mr. J says, do you think Rise 2 is one of the unannounced exclusive games Jez is hinting at?
no, it's not.
No, it's not.
Sorry.
Humjung says, if Microsoft owns rights to console, PC to Mech Assault, why no BC of the original Xbox games? They're the console versions with Microsoft owns.
It's because whoever drew up the contracts for the acquisition of those IP didn't word it very well. And because the people who own the franchise, the brand, and the universe of Mech Assault, it's really complicated. But the Mech Assault franchise, BattleTech, it's called, I believe, is the actual official name of it. The BattleTech franchise is a tabletop game, and the people who own that universe, the books, stuff like that, they have in the past shown themselves to sue people over the use of their IP. And Microsoft doesn't want to get sued. And I think there's a concern that the text in the original acquisition doesn't cover things like backwards compatibility, doesn't cover things like cloud gaming, stuff like that. So that's why you haven't seen Microsoft really use the IP. And what they've done is they've licensed it out. Like Mech Warrior 5 is coming to Xbox soon, I believe. And I think part of that trepidation over the IP is to do with the company who owns the universe to those games. Which is why, like, Paradox were able to make a BattleTech game, even though Microsoft sort of owned the IP, kind of. I think I'm not even sure if it was Microsoft who licensed the IP or the company that owned the universe licensed the IP. It's super complicated, basically, and it seems like the Mech Assault is not covered by the legalese in those original deals, which really sucks because I like that IP a lot. But
okay.
Oh well.
Let's see. Paul wants to know if it's possible for you that Hellblade 2 is partially open world. Maybe.
I hope so. I don't know anything about that game, but I do want it to be more than, as great as it was, atmospheric and, super cool and slick. I don't want it to be a walking simulator puzzle kind of game. I want it to be a combat open world kind of game. It's ultimately on them, whatever game they want to make, but
yeah.
I would prefer it to be more like,
Game Pass Perry, Jez says, should there be a concern for either PlayStation or Xbox version of MLB The Show being such a memory storage difference between the two?
I think part of this comes down to the difference in compression technology. I think there are things Microsoft can do to improve this stuff. And they probably will down the line. Microsoft actually has a whole section about Xbox Velocity architecture and decompression stuff at their GameStack live event on the 20th, which is this week, actually, thinking about it. But I do think like Sony's SSD and their decompression technology is like potentially better in some ways, which maybe explains some of this stuff. But I don't know. It also might be the fact that Microsoft has like higher quality textures or something in some games. I don't know. I'm just sort of making that up off the top of my head. But there's a number of ways that games can sort of leverage shrinking themselves, like compress audio more, have less, compressed translations, compressed textures, and stuff like that. But
yeah, I mean, I don't even know there. I didn't even know there was a difference. So,
yeah, there is a pretty significant difference over there. Yeah.
Is it higher on the Series X and less on the PS5? Is that what?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Eric says, "Hey gents,
wrong.
Hey gents, don't get to catch you live often, so just want to say keep up the great work on the show. Rand, congrats on 80K, brother. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate that a lot, man. Let's see, we got any more? Mike wants us to explain how licensing out an IP works for an exclusive game. For example, I would love to see Ninja Theory develop a dark open world Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle game with the mechanics style of Hellblade. Whew.
I mean, that's interesting to think about. But it ultimately boils down to how it's affecting your margins, right? So, for example, I know for a fact that if you want to license Star Wars to make a game, historically, you're going to end up giving a ton of your money to Disney. So it's kind of like, like for example, Square Enix. I bet the margins on Square Enix's Marvel game are just terrible. Not only did no one want to play or buy the game, Disney took a hell of a lot of money from licensing the IP. So the margins on that game would have been absolutely trash for what the time and money Square Enix invested in it. So at that point, when you're looking at a game like Outriders, why wouldn't you just make your own IP? You know, a lot of the time. But again, it can be very lucrative, as we've seen from Spider-Man. You know, Spider-Man Miles Morales, one of the best-selling games of the gen so far, especially for an exclusive game. So if it's done right, it can be very lucrative. But obviously, if it's done right, it's a huge caveat. So licensing something like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is probably a hell of a lot cheaper than licensing Star Wars. But it's also kind of like, would Microsoft not prefer to own the IP fully? It's kind of like, I think, for example, is the Indiana Jones game something Microsoft would have sanctioned? I'm not sure they would have done, but I don't know. It's all money, basically.
Yeah, it all comes down to money, but I don't really know too much about the licensing and how that all that really works. Artemis wants to know, since Microsoft had to negotiate each contract to every developer in Game Pass, would that mean Microsoft would have to go back and add Switch to allow platform? Well, not necessarily if they only put their first-party games on there, because they own them, right? I don't know. I don't know how that would entail, because some people will be like, well, they'll just put it in Game Pass Ultimate, and Game Pass Ultimate be on Switch. But it's like, I don't know about that. But that's just all kind of rumors for now. But
I kind of feel like if Game Pass does come to Switch, it'll be a separate provision, and it'll just be first-party games.
Yeah.
Because Nintendo want to sell a lot of the games that are in xCloud. Nintendo want to sell themselves. You know, they don't want people to just get them for free. So, like, maybe Nintendo Switch is a separate version and it's part of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. I don't know. But maybe Microsoft just cuts a big fat check and just says, let us, do it as we want, So, I don't know.
Dovakin says BC Pack with direct storage should rival Kraken. Gaming Forte says, when we getting that membership tier for members to come on the show? I guess we can call it the Xbox 2 third wheel. Some ideas there. Xbox 2 third wheel. I guess Gaming Forte wants to be on the show, Jez, is what he's trying to insinuate here. Sure, we could. I'm sure if we had
Xbox, we could do like call-ins or something.
Nah, I don't like call-ins. You see, David Jaffe had a call-in with the dude Jeff Ross from Ben Studio, and he didn't screen the call, and the guy was just basically like, "Yeah, you know what? I want my time back from Days Gone because that game was trash, and this guy you're interviewing is ugly." Like, yeah, you want some trolls to, I'm sure there's some trolls that out there would love to be able to say what they want to say to as many people as we get live. You know what I mean?
Oh right, yeah, I guess so. But like, I don't know. But if it was for people who donate only, I mean, if they donate to troll, then that's fine, right?
But Hamid says, any idea why Psychonauts is not in Game Pass? The original? I have no idea.
I don't know. There is a little bit of work to get a game into Game Pass. Like there's things that has to happen. So it could just be a matter of priorities and stuff like that. And it probably will come down the pipeline in the end. But that game's like $5, right? Something like that.
Yeah,
it's not too expensive to buy.
Question mark says, what difficulty did you finish Doom Eternal Ancient Gods Part 1 and 2 on? I played like 90% of it on normal, but then there was a section I just could not beat, so I put it down to easy and then put it back up to normal. That stuff is, even on normal difficulty, that stuff is ridiculous. It gets really hard. And I'm not a god gamer that can be like, I beat Doom Eternal on Ultra Nightmare without ever dying or whatever, you know what I mean? That's not, I'm not like that.
I reviewed Doom on like hard difficulty, like the one above normal, and I didn't think it was too bad. But then I tried the DLC, and I literally made me feel dumb. I was like, is my brain worse? Like I wasn't sure if I'd just forgotten how to play video games or something because I hadn't played Doom for so long. But
I mean, Doom the
apparently no, it
DLC
dropped hard.
the DLC is way harder. There's no there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It just is harder.
I feel like Doom scales in difficulty as the game goes on, it gets harder and harder and harder, doesn't it? So it trains you to play better as you're playing it. But if you haven't played Doom for a while and then you come into the DLC and you've forgotten all that training and stuff like that, it's kind of like you're back at square one, thrown into the deep end.
Yeah.
But,
Uno Punisher says, hi, love your show, highlight of the week for me. Just wanted to let you know that I listened to the show from Egypt. Again, thanks for the great show. Man, thank you for listening all the way in Egypt. You know, I'm always surprised by the amount of people that listen to the show and where everybody's from. It's truly the Xbox 2 is global, Jez, you know? It's a global podcast. That's all says, well, when will Xbox make their own anime game for the Japanese market? Probably never.
Oh man, I don't even want to see Microsoft try to make a Western anime game. I feel like that'd end up being super cringe.
Yeah.
But who knows? They made like a bunch of anime mascots for Windows and Surface. Did you see the anime girl for Surface? They made like a whole cartoon for Surface in anime.
I don't think I saw that stuff. No.
Yeah. You guys, after the show, Google Surface anime. There's like a little trailer. It's interesting.
Yeah. Anyways, I think that's all the questions I see. So I want to thank each and every one of you for being here. We had a great turnout. Thanks for all the support. Hit that like button, subscribe if you're new and all that stuff. And before we get out of here, Jez, you got anything you want to say?
No, just thanks. Thanks for listening, and see you next week.
Yeah, we will be back next week. Hopefully on Friday. Keep the streak alive. And hopefully there's just a whole bunch of new stuff to talk about. So until then, keep it gaming, guys. And, we'll see you next week.